I'd like to welcome everybody out to this work session of the Anchorage Assembly. We're going to take 3 minutes of testimony. So the way it'll work is when you get within 30 minutes to the end, this thing will either make an outrageous noise or change color. But I'll let you know when your 3 minutes are up. So we're here to take testimony on what we hope will be some input to Juno. This is not our decision here, but we do have some suggestions to Juno. I thought the best way to deal with this was to take public testimony. Because if Juno deals with this, you're not going to have the ability to fly down to Juno unless you've got enough money to get there and wait for their few seats they have in their area. So I'd much rather hear from the public here. We're going to send a copy of this MP3 down to Juno. So legislators have time to listen to this. And with that, please come up to the microphone and we'll listen to you. But thanks for being here. Welcome.
Are you going to turn on the system?
Your microphone's working. I mean, what do you ask? Is the system working?
It's not even working. They're installing the computer They're installing the computer
So SAP stopped the system from working, so you tell me? Okay. Welcome, ma'am. Sorry.
Good morning. Good morning, my name is Therese Galvin. Today I'm here to speak to you about how my family and I have been victims in the community for the past year. First of all, I would like to address my concerns in regards to the opioid issue. Plain and simple, doctors are not educated properly when it comes to pain management. I unfortunately know this all too well. Here are 2 examples. I have a family member who has been seen at Fireweed Healthcare. She has been reported several times for overuse and abusing pain meds, yet she still receives 120 pain pills a month. She has no medical diagnosis for this. Second, I have Markman syndrome, a complex medical condition. I have had 29 surgeries. You would think I would have a reason to receive opioid medications with my health, but I manage without the use of opioids most of the time, except in extreme cases. This April, I was in a car accident, a hit and run. I went to the emergency room in an ambulance, a time that I actually need pain medication. The doctor said that only terminal patients and gunshot wound patients receive pain meds. I was given 4 milligrams of Ativan and lidocaine and Salvador. Now let's address how crime has affected me and my family this year. On July 3rd, my home was burglarized and my family and I became a victim of crime. The police took 7 hours to get to my house. I am still working with the insurance company on this claim. On July 27th, I was also a victim to crime. On what seemed like the sunniest weekend we had all summer, I took my 3 daughters camping to South Raleigh Lake in Willow. I dropped my payment in the state of Alaska mailbox to pay for a camping site, not knowing that later that month my check would be stolen by Jeremy Spurgeon, a felon with multiple counts of fraud, who just 2 days before was released from jail for 8 counts of check fraud and on $250 bail. I was number 9, but the troopers told me that he had to have 12 separate charges for it to be considered a felony. This was reported to me in August, so you see, he had almost a month to copy my bank account. We were victims for the second time in less than 2 months. Last December, I was a victim of crime again. Little did I know that bringing my car down to the dealership to get its oil change would result in it getting shot out multiple times. This resulted in me not having a car for 2 months. So you see, in just 11 months, my family and I have been victims to both the opioid epidemic and crime. I have lived in Anchorage all of my life, almost 41 years. I have 5 beautiful girls. My husband and I are sick of the crime here, and we don't feel safe. And that is why in August I flew down to Texas to meet a realtor because we are moving. I love Alaska, but I and many others are tired of being victims of crime. It is simply out of control. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Question from assembly members. Your system's not working, so if you raise your hand, I'll call on you. Questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Assembly members. Thank you very much for calling this meeting.
I think it's a very important thing that Anchorage, the largest city in the state, by far, has an opportunity to address these problems. I only have one question. Because we are the largest city in the state, because we are being confronted with crime on a daily basis, why doesn't Anchorage have more influence in June? Why don't we have home rule, which allows us, which we had before, to have different penalties for crimes? I don't understand it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Question from some members. Mr. Bowski? Ma'am, she's down here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for your testimony. I didn't catch your name.
Linda Chase.
Ms. Chase, thank you for your testimony today. Anchorage is a home rule charter city. The state law prohibits us from having any penalties that are greater than state law. So in part, the discussion that we're having is about the state law that was passed, possible amendments to that state law, or possible repeal of that state law. But because so many of the classifications and the penalties at the state level have been diminished, the city can't exceed the state's law. That's where we are right now, and that's part of the discussion. But look around today, how many legislators do you see here? They all know about the meeting.
Well, the important people are here, us. And
Thank you, ma'am.
I understand all of that, and that's what I don't get. We are Anchorage, the largest city, and yet our influence in ruling our community has been diminished. And I don't like it. I want to take back our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Look at the meeting, sir.
Hi, my name is Chris Eichenlaw from Eagle River, and I just want to address SB 91 and how corrosive I think it is to our community. We're in a state of emergency, undeclared, but an emergency, which requires immediate action, not 2 years down the road, or we're going to tweak it here and tweak it there. We need to get this thing repealed. It's corrosive. That's all I got. Any questions for me?
Question from some members? Thank you for your testimony, sir. We appreciate it. Go ahead, Susan.
How many staffers are here from?
Are there any staffers here from the legislature? There's your answer, ma'am.
Okay.
Welcome to the meeting, ma'am. Go ahead.
My name is Terry Walters, and I am the founder and president of Fallen Up Ministries, a peer-to-peer support and recovery service organization that also addresses the opioid epidemic. I'm a victim of a crime in our state. June 22nd, 2015, my son Christopher Seaman was robbed and murdered in Big Lake. The crime against my son was committed to obtain drugs and happened months before Senate Bill 91. I'm also a woman in long-term recovery, formerly incarcerated, and I've been part of the state of Alaska system since 1984 until my release from parole, April 2nd, 2016. I'm in support of criminal justice reform. Just because I am for reform does not mean I am for crime. I often see comments on social media that endorse abusing those currently incarcerated. I'm here to tell you there are things the public does not know that does happen behind the walls and is extremely inhumane, and things that aren't happening to support rehabilitation and humane correction. Evidence shows that this type of treatment creates what is called post-incarceration syndrome and relapse. I encourage everyone to look up this syndrome, the diagnosis and statistic predictors Dr. Terry Gorski describes. 95% of those arrested and convicted will return to the community. After incarceration, do we want angry, unrehabilitated individuals returning to our communities? What you are seeing happening in our state is a direct result of untreated substance use disorder, mental health issues, and exactly what Dr. Terry Gorski spoke about. In order to address the rise in crime, we must look at the symptom of it and fill in the gaps by reinvesting funds used to incarcerate individuals that are nonviolent by distributing funds to organizations who have life experience in incarceration and offer transitional services, peer-to-peer support, life coaching, addressing substance use disorder. We also should be offering rehabilitation coupled with peer-to-peer support services within the prisons. I believe every individual should be accountable for crimes committed, but I also believe that implementing evidence-based diversion programs within the system best serves the returning citizen and the public in the long run. This protocol together is basically a prevention piece to reducing recidivism and increasing crime, or increasing public safety, and will save the state money in the long run. This is not going to go away unless we treat the symptom. I work closely with those currently incarcerated and those returning, and I know the internal issues within the system that need to be addressed. Repealing Senate Bill 91 will not stop crime. There are pieces that need to be fixed that will hold individuals accountable for crimes committed. A citation is not going to cut it. The judicial system and the Department of Corrections needs to be held accountable also by implementing humane correction through rehabilitation and transitional services. They have a responsibility to the public, and part of the public is those returning to our communities after incarceration. Those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but furthest from resources and power. We must change that. We want to be invited to the table to be part of the solution because we do have solutions. We can and do recover. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, similar members? Thank you, ma'am. No more questions. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Okay, we got it. Welcome to the meeting.
Greetings. My name is Devin Urquhart, and I represent the Anchorage Reentry Coalition as their coalition coordinator. The coalition is a collective of about 45 agencies and community members connecting returning citizens to resources and opportunities that will help keep them safe and remain in Anchorage. If you're new to learning about coalitions, think of us as a switchboard for prisoner reentry. If somebody needs something, they can call on the coalition and we connect them to the right agency or person to help solve a problem. I'm here today to testify in support of Senate Bill 91. The advocacy and support of the Assembly shows to SB 90 that SB 91 is weighted, with Anchorage receiving approximately half of Alaska's people coming out of prison, and helps reconnect families to their sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, aunties, and uncles. Community members have shared they feel violated and unsafe at the potential that shoplifting and vehicle thefts could escalate into violent crime. It has been learned that a large amount of these thefts are chronic, meaning the same people are stealing repeatedly due to a lack of consequence and opioid dependence motivating their criminal activity. The people committing chronic thefts are likely a very small subset of the thousands of people who are positively impacted by SB 91. In our recent partnership with the Anchorage Police Department, it was learned that there are some strategies being implemented to address chronic repeat thefts, and this will likely increase the public's feeling of safety. In less than 2 months, pretrial services will be up and running. Soon the money allocated to treatment and wellness services will be shared with our communities. And these are the avenues that will mitigate some of the safety concerns that we are seeing. The coalition and its partner agencies will continue engaging returning citizens in reentry services and jobs, meeting with their probation officers, and helping people reintegrate successfully back into Anchorage. You, our community, do not need to wait 2 months to see change in our community. You can contact the coalition and see how you can help keep our community safe, and you can do it today. Most of Anchorage's returning citizens have steady jobs, they live safely in our community, and they love their families and children. Most experience a disability. They have untreated mental illness, substance misuse disorders, physical disabilities, and organic brain disorders. And all of them are our neighbors. You do not have a problem unless you have a solution. and repeal is not a solution. It is not affordable or ethical. Please share your ideas for real solutions, lend a hand to your neighbor, and connect with the underfunded agencies who work tirelessly to make our community safer. Everybody can do something. We can keep our community safe, our families together, and allow our people to be productive members in Anchorage. Thank you.
Questions from members? Thank you, ma'am, for your testimony. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting.
Excuse me. My name is Robin Mitchell and I'm from Trivia. I'd like to tell you about my service last year. I'm 57 years old. I had no involvement in the Alaska court system until last year. You can go to Google and put in John Mitchell and Lee Zeldin, the congressman from New York. Youngest man in New York State history to pass the bar at 22. I'm sure the lawyers will understand that. Lee Zeldin or John Mitchell, the largest amount available from the Veterans Administration, $8,400 a month and $68,000 in back money. Within 3 weeks, con artists and shysters moved in on my husband. Last October, I went to 8 meeting with Tom Lamb. And I'm sure a lot of you know who Tom Lamb was. He ran for U.S. Senate last round. And he was my witness, and my husband was saying $27,000 was stolen. ABD did zero. Mayor Berkowitz did zero. I went to the Trivia Senior Citizen Center, confronted him. They looked into it, zero. Last February 20th, my husband was assaulted. He's a brain injury career veteran, 21 years Green Bay Ranger. He was assaulted. His caregiver, Joseph Reyes, found him in a pool of blood. Witnesses put him there at 5:30. He told first responders he got there at 6:42. This past week, Judge Wells asked my husband, were you assaulted? And he said, I don't know, because he was unconscious. He spent 2 rounds in ICU. Nothing was investigated. Nothing. Joseph Reyes was arrested June 23rd in Palmer for assaulting 2 visiting Canadian firemen. He just changed his plea last Thursday. This man, who has probably stolen thousands of dollars, assaulted my husband, and assaulted 2 visiting firemen, was let out on $500 bail on SB 91. He will probably see 0 jail time. And this veteran is still being abused by him and this lawyer. The only contact my husband has right now is this lawyer and this caregiver that I hired, trying to help him. I am now under the 14th month of a DVRO that was proven in court to have no domestic violence and no threat. Judge Jennifer Wells, the state's supposed domestic violence expert, held it against me again for 14 months in a 1-year thing. They got me separated from him and they docketed his money, and they're still getting his money. And like I said, he was assaulted, $500 bail under SB 91 for Joseph Reyes. 3 PA 17967 CR. And he will probably see no jail for assaulting his 2 firemen. He ambushed them outside Klondike Nights, broke one ankle, 2 bloody noses, and 2 cops on patrol, all the witnesses. And this is the result of SB 91. Your cops don't investigate thousands of stolen dollars, veterans being assaulted, and when they do get caught, they get let out right away. He was out within hours.
Ma'am, your time's up. Any
Thank
questions
you.
from Assembly members? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify? Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, thank you. My name is Carol Jane Rook. As you can tell, I'm not an Alaska resident by birth. I'm actually appalled at what I've come back to see that Anchorage has turned into. I left Alaska 6 years ago. I moved back a year ago. I used to live in the bush, and my family's only caveat when I moved back was that I not moved that far remote again because they wanted me to be safer. They were worried about some of the wildness that happened out in the bush, and they thought Anchorage is a good compromise. Now I have friends that swore that they would come up and visit me. Not going to happen, because they see on social media what happens in Anchorage. We're called Lost Anchorage. That's not a good thing. For a city that depends on our tourism dollars, this is ridiculous. People that had plans made have stopped them, have reversed them, have called for refunds to come back, and they're not coming here. I can't go somewhere and leave my dog in the car because some bum's going to steal my dog and sell it on Craigslist. It does not matter what part of the Anchorage Bowl you live in. We are not safe. And for everything that we're talking about, SB 91 had some good little points in there. It would have been great if they had put money into rehab, but they didn't. They opened the barn door, let everybody out, and they're still talking about, well, when we get the money in, we'll do this. It's too late. We've created an environment where the criminals feel that they have nothing to worry about, and the rest of us sit in our homes every night worried about whether or not it's safe to go to the grocery store. We have citizen groups forming all over this town, which is good, law-abiding citizens that are so frustrated and so scared and so angry that they are starting to take the law into their own hands. We're taking good, law-abiding citizens and turning them into quote-unquote criminals because we're becoming vigilantes to keep ourselves safe. SB 91 may have been what opened the door, but in my mind, what has happened here is beginning at your level and going all the way up to the governor's level. You're not listening to us. You're not hearing us. I've been sitting here for a few minutes and I've watched somebody just look absolutely bored. And it's offensive. It's offensive beyond belief. Yes. I'm so frustrated I don't quite know what to say. But something's got to be done. SB 91 needs to be repealed, not fixed, because there are things in this bill that have not come into play yet. So if you do a patch job now, come January 1st, there's a lot of other things that are going to roll out, and what's going to fix that? Repeal it, start over, listen to your citizens, listen to your constituents, and I don't mean just the squeaky wheels, I mean do some research and listen to them. I work downtown. I can tell you this is not working. I drive past Brother Francis Shelter every single day. I watch people having sex on the street. I watch people defecating on the street. There's been 3 stabbings within a block of where I have to work. We have people patrolling the parking lots. When we close our gates at night, people come over the fence and steal everything. I understand there's some mental illness involved. I understand that we need to work on rehabbing people that we put into prison. We can't just keep cycling them through because they go into prison and learn how to be better crooks.
Ma'am, your time's up.
Okay.
Question from assembly members? Ms. Dombrowski?
It's not really a question, but just for the public's knowledge, Mr. Croft and myself and Mr. Trainee all have resolutions regarding the crime issue. If you haven't picked them up yet, they're down here at the front, so you can read the issues that are the resolutions that we're considering. I think they're supposed to be introduced on Tuesday, right, Eric?
Yes.
And then scheduled again for public testimony on the 24th.
24th.
So these are 2 different options that the Assembly's considering, but just as you come testify, if you want to weigh in on either one of them, it might be helpful. Thank you.
We can do that.
Let's talk to Dean Gates and figure this out. Competing lines on the issue.
Welcome to the meeting, sir.
First and foremost, I would just like to state my name for the record. Cesar Martinson. I live in downtown Anchorage, Alaska. I would like to thank every member of the Assembly, number 1, for being here, number 2, for holding this important forum on an issue that is affecting our community. I would like to speak to what I consider to be the breakdown of law and order in the Anchorage area. First off, last week I had to assist my neighbor in removing a woman who had broken into her home. We had to escort the woman off of her property twice, and she called the police. They never showed up. 2 months before, a neighbor at the end of my block, who is sort of, shall we say, the crime watchman on my street, witnessed a murder kidnapping in front of his home. That is documented. He has it on videotape. So far, he has heard nothing back from the Anchorage Police Department. He is, as we speak, been documenting a house that is directly across the street from his home, which appears to be a drug drop-off, in the sense that people come there and receive narcotics. A week before that, there was a murder in an apartment complex in my neighborhood. My mother and I have witnessed public defecation and urination directly across the street on the park benches. We live directly across the street from the tennis courts. We've witnessed public urination and defecation. We have called the Anchorage Police Department. Generally speaking, if they come at all, it's generally 2 hours later, and where my mother is giving a statement to the police. We have witnessed this so often, it has become a joke in our household because nothing is done about it. We've witnessed folks literally across the street from our house or on other getting high off of drugs, heroin, sometimes sniffing coke. We've had issues of people ODing across the street from our house. We've had issues of physical violence, of particularly homeless folks getting violent in front of our home. My father and I worked on putting a fence in the front yard of our house because we have had, in the last 2 years, we've had so many drunks and drug addicts that pass out in our front yard of our home that we literally had to put a fence in because it was becoming a problem. Not to mention the fact that my family has been victims of petty crime. We've had bicycles, tools, and other things stolen out of our yard. We have had to put in a fence in our backyard. This is all happening within the downtown area. And so there are two things that I would highly recommend that the Assembly take action on. First of all, I want to speak in support of Assemblywoman Demboski's resolution to repeal Senate Bill 91. Senate Bill 91, Senate Bill, and I want to be clear in my statements to every single one of you. I believe in rehabilitation. I believe that we need to be working with people that are in the Department of Corrections in terms of making those folks productive members of the society. But we have got to protect victims. We've got to protect public safety. And Senate Bill 91 has created an environment where crime is thriving, and it is putting people's lives and people's property in jeopardy. And I am telling you, as someone who lives in the downtown area, that something has got to be done. They've got to repeal it, go back to square one, and look at what works, and stop doing what isn't working. Because I'm telling you, folks, my family, our neighbors, we are not safe on our own property. We are not safe in the area that we call home. The second thing, and I realize I'm over time, but I want to say this very quickly, is please stop concentrating services for the homeless in the downtown area. Brother Francis Shelter has become a public safety hazard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions from the Assembly members? Sarah, come back here for a minute, if you would, please. Mr. Demboski has a comment.
Thank you, Cesar, for your testimony.
Thank you.
I'll take a sidebar with you, but I want to get the contact information on the person who you said witnessed a murder and a kidnapping, and if he hasn't followed up, we will follow up. I promise you that.
Okay, thank you.
Hold their hand, we'll do that. And also, I want to, just for the record, point out that Representative Sharice Millette has entered the room, and she's here to listen to public testimony today, so I just wanted the record to reflect that.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
My name is Bonnie Lilly, and you've seen me a couple times so far. I live over off of Muldoon, and I want Juneau to know how this SB 91 has changed just the average person's life. I'm really big into photography, and I love shooting the Northern Lights. But you wouldn't catch me out there for any amount of money because I'm in fear for my life. The amount of people that are wandering around at night stealing cars, breaking into homes, dealing drugs is on and on and on. So that's just something that I've had to give up. My camera has sat in the bag for a year now since the bill was passed because the crime has gotten so bad. We used to go with my family, and we'd walk the coastal trail downtown. And we'd ride bikes through the city of Anchorage, and it would take 3 or 4 of us get together and we'd go do that. We don't do that anymore. We went out to the coastal trail the other night, and as soon as the sun started to set, every one of us looked at each other and said, it's time to get out of here. Because as soon as the sun goes down, that's when the crime starts. The biggest problem with SB 91, in my personal opinion, is that they're letting people go on misdemeanor charges. But what this has created is a bunch of criminal entrepreneurs. They're out there stealing specific things and setting up shop and selling these things on all the for sale websites. So instead of working, they actually have a business that they're selling things that are stolen from the hardworking people of Alaska. It's just really gotten so dangerous that I've put a security system in my house. I put a security system in my car, and I don't go to the Muldoon Fred Meyers without a loaded pistol in my pocket. I am not, because it's gotten so dangerous. In my neighborhood, there's been well over 7 or 8 shootings. I don't even know what they're shooting at. I think they're drug dealers that are fighting for territory. Now people don't even call. If they say, "Oh, did you hear the shootings last night?" "Yeah, I heard them." Nobody's even bothering to call because nothing is happening about it. SB 91 has to be repealed because it's going to continue to get worse. It's not going to get better. You can put 60 probation officers out there. It isn't going to make a difference. They first have to rein in this crime, start over. Let's make the laws to where police can actually do their jobs. Put people that are having chop shops, like in Eagle River, released on $750 bail, no jail time. They have 10 vehicles on the property. There is a huge problem with this. We have to really take action now before it's bloody too late. And I applaud your efforts and your recommendations. They're very good. We really have to make sure that this gets pushed through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions from the members? Thank you. Welcome to the meeting.
Howdy. So my name is Noria Clark. Noriacloak, just so you guys know. There's a few things that I have, and I really don't care about your timer because I'm going to say what I need to say. I live in America.
That's all right. I'll cut you off if you go over.
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. How about people
button.
are able to donate their time to me?
Just go ahead, man.
So I can have somebody else's time. So here's the thing. There are a few things that we really need to work on in this state. Number one, obviously being repealing SB 91. SB 91 is done, okay? And here's the other thing that every politician, so far I haven't been upset with you guys, I've actually been somewhat impressed. Although I've heard bad things about you, I've been somewhat impressed. Because everybody's been contacting me on Facebook. Instead of being able to create a speech yesterday for this, I was fielding messages from everybody. Because I've been on the news 4 times lately here. I'm from Arizona. So I understand what it is to live in America, okay?
Ma'am, testify to us and not the audience.
Sir, no, actually, like I said, I live in America. My brother went to Iraq. I will use my freedom of speech as I care for.
That's the reason we have it for you.
So here's the
Speaker.
thing, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I have a few questions and mostly a testimony, as you said. One of the things that, and what I actually have for you is solutions. Actually, hold on 1 second. Dan, are you recording this? Perfect. So, instead of just complaining about SB 91, I actually have some solutions about how we're going to fix these things. Especially when it comes to our fiduciary duty for the state. The state isn't a budgetary. We're losing money right now. What I want to know is why. Did you know that right now, when everybody has to fly to Juneau for a special session, there's 4 this year. It's over $70,000 that we will have spent on per diem. $70,000 in 1 year for per diem. That is ridiculous. Especially for people who live inside their own homes. And many people may not like this, but guess what? We need to either move the capital back to Anchorage, which I know people aren't going to be happy about. But here's the thing, we have this fancy thing called the internet. And guess what? The people in Juneau can still keep their jobs. We'll pay less money here to have all of these people like Representative Millen and everybody else fly and have to be paid per diem. You're not allowed to be paid per diem, in my opinion, if you're living in your own home or if you're within 40 miles. Like I said, what I'm here to do is to actually present solutions. And one of those solutions is, let's have the meetings here. Right now, the Sullivan Center isn't being used, is it? No, don't tell me to move on. Okay? Because like I said, I actually have some fiduciary ideas. SB 91, you know, there's a lot of things to go on about SB 91. One of the things about SB 91, and trust me, I know because I've actually had to pull a gun 4 times. Yeah, sorry, don't care.
Ma'am, it doesn't matter whether you care or not. We've got other people here to testify.
I know, and they're
Your time is up.
We're here until 1. No.
We're here until I end the meeting.
Somebody else has, two people have given me their 3 minutes.
Come on down.
I'm allowed to
We
have
don't
this
give
time.
away to
No,
other
actually,
people.
technically, it's not in the statute, but I can't take his time. He's now donating.
We have other people
So I get
testify.
another 3 minutes.
You've had your 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, sir, but somebody else just donated their time to me.
We don't let people donate time.
Yeah,
That's
it's,
the
not,
rule.
it's actually not technically in your statute.
Ma'am, your time's
No,
up.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Sir, weren't you brought up on charges of...
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you a question so you can
Sir,
continue
yes.
to talk, because I don't want our security guard to get involved in this. Can you please, are you able to confine your testimony to SB 91, which is the topic we're discussing today?
Certainly I can to a certain extent.
Could you please elaborate your ideas regarding SB 91?
Yes, sir.
Thank
I think the criminals should have to pay for themselves. Right now, the PFD is not actually, it's given out to people, but yet they are not actually paying for themselves. Anytime you go to jail, you should have to pay for yourself. So right now, what we should be doing is garnishing their PFD. This is another financial idea that I have. Okay? The problem is right now the court system and the police are not able to communicate, which will cost money, unfortunately, over a computer system. And right now nobody's being locked up. So if you get locked up over multiple times, let's just say you made a mistake, okay, fine. Guess what? You have to pay for yourself. Second time, 3 times is definitely a strike. So I'm from Arizona. The other thing that I have to say about SB 91 right now, the problem with this is that they went from petty crimes with bicycles and everything else to vehicles, and now that there is nobody, is it Trainee?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Trainee, if you pay attention, I'd appreciate it. So one of the things that you need to understand, being from where I'm from, you need to understand that it is hard to get things in and out of Alaska, obviously. So petty crime was one thing. Then there was vehicles. And now there are children being abducted. What do you think is going to happen next? Do you think that these kids are the next thing on the hot market? That now these children are going to become a commodity to be traded? Or to do whatever with? There was a girl who was almost stolen yesterday. This is disgusting. SB 91, it is time to repeal it. And what you need to do is listen to people like Bush and Cindy Moore, who actually know what they're talking about, but who spend all of their time trying to fight everything that all of these people have done wrong. The last thing that I have one question for you all, okay? My question is, and I want all of you to please answer in succession or however you like, what is the most valuable thing in life? Mr. Wellington. What is the most valuable thing to you in life?
Ma'am, this is not a question and answer.
No,
I'm
sir,
sorry.
you just
Ma'am,
said that we were allowed to ask
we've
questions.
been kind to you.
Sir,
That's
no,
enough.
I really don't
Brian?
care. Fine, come get me. Sir, I can take you down here. I would like, no, why
We
am I
want to
not
hear
allowed to
from
ask a
everybody
question?
else.
You said that I was allowed to ask a question. Hey, good news is I'm really loud. Sir, don't touch me. I want to know what you find to be the most valuable thing in life. And if all of you would answer, then I will walk away. How about that? What do you
John?
think is the most valuable thing in life?
I wonder, you know,
What is that?
it feels unfair that other people have 3 minutes and she's
I
been
know.
over.
I don't care.
However,
There's not that many people here. You have plenty of time.
and if we've gone
I've
through,
never seen
everybody's had a
someone.
chance to speak, maybe we could open
She
the
could come
mic.
back.
How about
He
you
goes
tell
through
me what the
everybody.
most valuable thing is in
I
life
got no
right now?
problem.
And you know what it is? It's time. And you have stolen. You have stolen our time. Not you guys.
Ma'am,
Can
you
we take a
are.
break, Mr. Trainee?
Stolen our time.
Okay,
Can we take a
ma'am,
break?
please. We have other people.
Yeah, because you guys want to hear everybody, but you don't actually want to hear anybody, do you? Sitting around.
Anybody else wish to testify? They can keep it to 3 minutes.
No, you can't.
Welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. My name is Cindy Moore. I appreciate the Anchorage Assembly hosting this forum for the public. My life has been affected by crime in the city and in the state. My youngest daughter, Brianna Moore,
was murdered by her boyfriend June 26, 2014, in an instance of dating violence. And after this happened, I did a lot of research because as a mom, how could something like this happen to my daughter? And I was shocked at what I found when I did the research. This was in 2014. What I found is as a state, we're number one in men killing women. We're number one in gun deaths. We're number one in domestic violence. We're number one as the most dangerous state in America. In 2014, based on FBI numbers, Anchorage was the second most dangerous city for women in the United States. Fairbanks was the third most dangerous city in the country for women. We're number one in sexual assault. We're number one in suicide. This is unacceptable. We're number one in child abuse, child neglect. We have the highest number of foster children per capita. This was before SB 91. Our system was broken before SB 91. Now that SB 91 has passed, it's worse. How can you go from these stats prior to SB 91 to worse? Something has to be done. I'm pleading. Something has to be done. Do you think that I would have ever thought that my daughter, my baby girl, would be taken by violence? This can be any one of you sitting up here. Any one of you. This is important. And this is our number one job, is to keep the public safe. It's public safety. So if we have to take funds from something else to make sure the public is safe, that's what we need to do. Thank you very
Ma'am,
much.
thank you. Question? Thank you. Welcome, sir. You're the father, I understand, of the child that was killed?
My name is Butch Moore, and I'm Bree's dad.
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody who's here today. This is a mess that has to be cleaned up, and you are not the people that should be doing it. I went to Juneau. I worked tirelessly on SB 91. I worked on SB 54. And I've emailed you, and the clerk's given you copies of some of my suggestions. And I think, a couple things that people are not aware of, the public's not aware of. I think we all know about the C felonies. If someone has not been prior convicted of any felony, they cannot be held on bail or forced to do jail time. But part of one of the fixes here that I'm suggesting, item number 2 on the list, Class B felony, first time, Class B felony, includes criminally negligent homicide. There is an exception for that. However, if this building were to be burnt down by someone who has not committed a prior felony, that's a Class B felony, arson, the presumptive sentencing range changed from prior to SB 91 from 1 to 3 years to 0 to 2 years. So they could actually get no time. And the part that is so outrageous about that is our Attorney General, Jana Lindemuth, wrote a letter, which I have attached to the email I sent you. 90 to 95% of all the cases that are resolved with prosecution are resolved with a plea deal. So if we're starting at a Class B felony, and it reduces to a C, there's no jail time. So the prosecutors have no leverage. Because if they arrest me for burning this building down, I'm going to say, go ahead and prosecute me, because even if I'm found guilty, I won't go to jail. Potentially. Or I'll get a SIS, and I'll get 2 years, two years suspended, SIS that goes off my record. Because of House Bill 11 that was signed into law prior, any charges that resulted in acquittal or were dismissed don't even show up. So now, all these crimes that we're seeing, all these people being murdered, we go back and look at the offender's history, and on the C felonies, it even says on one of these items that I've got here, a recommendation, when a peace officer contacts someone who they find guilty of believe is guilty of a C felony, they can just write a citation and let them go, or they don't even have to do that. So there's not even an arrest record. And so SB 91 is full of a bunch of holes that need to be fixed that are not addressed in SB 54. And I would welcome any of you guys to call me. I've got my cell number down here. The one caveat that I'll make that's very important is if whatever the Assembly from Anchorage puts forward to the legislature, I think you want to make sure and say we are supporting the current draft of SB 54 with these amendments. And we probably need some more amendments, because if we just say Act 54, who knows what that's going to look like when it comes out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate you guys.
Mr. Croft, sir. Mr. Croft has a question, sir.
Yeah.
Make sure it's
Butch and Cindy, thank you for all that you've done after the tragedy that happened. It's every parent's nightmare. But for all your work on Breeze Law, but then here in particular, it's extremely helpful to have your specific suggestions. We missed each other yesterday. It was my fault, but I'll contact you this weekend and try and incorporate these in. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Other questions, Assembly members? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Open the meeting.
My name is Amber Nickerson, Nickerson. So I didn't prepare anything, so I just wrote something really quick that I want to read. I'm here today to ask you to help protect the sections of SB 91 that deal with the safety for sex workers, particularly the sections that allow for immunity in reporting crimes and the sections that prevent sex workers and sex trafficking victims from being charged with trafficking themselves and each other. Legislative and administrative intent was clear in creating the sex trafficking statutes in 2012. These statutes were used against people who exploited and harmed sex workers, not against sex workers themselves. But every single person the Department of Law charged under these statutes in the first 2 years was an alleged prostitute charged with prostitution. SB 91 hasn't fully had time to be enacted, and people seem to be laying blame because that's what we do as a society. If it wasn't SB 91, then we would be blaming something else the government was doing. I think if people don't like something the government is enacting, that we as a people have the right to speak up and take part in working on a solution. Blaming never got anyone anywhere. Really, if all we did was sit around and complain, we would be driving on the other side of the road and using the metric system. Our country was built for solution through a revolution. Blaming is beneath us, or should be. Please help protect the sections of SB 91 that deal with safety for sex workers.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions from Assembly members? Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Work the meeting, sir.
My name is Sean Davin, D-A-V-N-E-Y, ex-offender number 24107. I do agree that some parts of SB 91 need help, they need work on, but what we're looking at is individuals making choices. I understand there are a lot of victims here. I've had some victims. I didn't kill anybody. I've taken from people. I'm a the sobriety and clean time behind me. I went to several different programs while incarcerated. That's where the money needs to go to. We need to have money go there instead of building more prisons. If you build more prisons, what do you expect to happen to a 22-year-old kid who makes a mistake? He's going to go in, he's going to learn from older ones that are going to take him under his wing, and then he's going to be a repeat offender. Hello, that was me. I was 23 years old when I first went in. I just finally got done May 7th. I'm almost 50 years old. November 14th, I'll be 50. It took that long for me to get it. Now, I understand and I have compassion for people. I am empathetic. But when I go in as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old kid, mad, because yes, I messed up and it was my choice to mess up, you know, and then I'm throwing a bone at the age of almost 50, you know, with some of the parts of SB 91. I got off of parole early because I finally got it. I finally got to the point of, I'm tired of this. But if you repeal it, then you got more guys, 22, that are coming out at the age of 50. Maybe they got it, maybe they didn't. But help is needed. You know, it seems like right now it's just a witch hunt. I'm sorry to say it. It seems like I've watched and seen things on Salem witch trials. There's a witch hunt. SB 91 is a witch, and we're trying to get rid of it. You know, open dialogue, that's good. That's what is needed in the community, in a democratic society. But you can't just throw people away. And if you repeal SB 91, then to me, you're still throwing them away, lock them up, throw away the key. But eventually, even with presumpts, even with mandatory minimums, maximums, people are still going to get out, and what are you faced with? You know, you still have to look at that. You know, and I've heard some of the people speaking here, and I think some of the issues that are being confused are homelessness with SB 91. You're trying to combine them. You can't defecate on the side of the street, Brother Francis shelter. Those aren't all criminals, those are homeless people. You got a lot of homeless downtown. Those aren't all criminals that just got released. You know, so we're confusing the issues here. We need to separate one from the other, deal with the issue, figure out better ways, better solutions for it, and then continue on. Because you just can't blame everything on SB 91. It's like Anchorage is just, it's not Philadelphia. I'm from Philadelphia. Trust me, it's not Philadelphia. It's not major city. You're trying to get there. You got the wrong hands.
Sir, Mr. Croft has a question for you. Mr. Croft?
Just, you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what is it, or combination of things that convinced you to finally get sober and stop?
It was the money put into programs. It was the money. It was just, I went through a lot of programming. And some of the guys in there would say brainwashing, but I went through a lot of programming to get myself into right thinking and get out of the criminal mentality so that I could be here standing in front of you talking right now. Now, I could be pissed off seriously. Oh man, that's wrong. They're trying to, but I'm an intelligent man. I just made a lot of bad decisions in my life. And now I've learned to make better decisions for myself.
Other questions from some members? Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome to the meeting, ma'am.
Thank you for being here. It's a sad state of affairs that I have to be here. I belong to the same group as the Moores. My daughter was murdered in Eagle River. My name is Sherry Miller. Her name was Linda Ann Marks Bauer, and she was strangled by her boyfriend in September of 10th, 2014. Driven around, he threw her in the back seat of his car, drove around with her for hours on end. And his brother called the cops. He turned himself in, and they found her in the back of his black Mercedes in the Walgreens parking lot in Eagle River. I, like the Moores, never, ever thought something like this would happen to me and my family. And I have to say that I am so angry and frustrated with the judicial system in SB 91. It has been 3 years and 1 month, and my daughter's murderer is not convicted. He is still waiting to be sentenced for his crime. 3 years, 1 month. That is unacceptable. I had a bunch of notes, but I just want to implore upon you. The parts of SB 91, they're broken. They're all broken. Whether it's low-level crimes or extreme crimes such as this, violent criminals are falling in the cracks of SB 91 as well. The way that it affects our family is our plea agreement was rejected on our behalf. The judge saw through the plea deal because my daughter's killer would be eligible for parole at 14 years. She was 19. If he was not granted parole, this is where SB 91 falls in, and he falls in the cracks. Every 2 years, ladies and gentlemen, every 2 years, whether he wants to or not, he is eligible for parole. Every 2 years. So where is the ending of grief for me and my family? Because every 2 years, you bet your bottom dollar I will be at that hearing. Every 2 years if I have to. But I have to face my daughter's killer every 2 years. Because I do not want him to walk the streets of this city or to see the light of day again. I am a proponent of the death penalty, but unfortunately Alaska turned its eye to that. I say to you, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't fix it at the low levels of crime and stop slapping the hands of criminals, and you hold them accountable, we will see a change. We will see a change. I'm sorry, I am not empathetic to prisoners. I want to see them held accountable for their actions. And I don't want them walking the streets of our beautiful state. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the member? Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward.
Good morning, Ms.
Morning,
Senator. My name is Leonard Martins. I thank you for your time here today. I realize that SB 91 is a law that is out of your purview, and all you can do is put pressure on the legislature. I urge you to do so. Although there may be a lot of good things in SB 91, and I believe that along with the board and the woman who just spoke, these things happened before SB 91. The biggest problem that lawmakers, yourselves and our state legislature have, is they're looking at this problem from the side of the criminal, not the victims or the public.
Yeah.
Our job should not be to figure out whether it was a Class A or a Class B felony. Did this guy steal this guy's truck? Did this guy shoot this person's son or daughter or husband or wife? These are the simple parts of it. We need to simplify these laws because what you have now is just a whole series of loopholes that these people can sneak through. So these are the things that I urge you to look at. Simplify these laws. SB 91 is 125 pages long. I doubt anyone here has actually read that whole thing, and I challenge either of you or any of you to read that and fully understand it. You need some pretty top-notch attorneys to understand that and how it applies to the law, which, as Butch has said before, is a book without yay fault. There's probably a whole library of it. So, I urge you to put pressure on the legislature to make these changes, to make the city safe for the people again. And keep that in mind when you make these laws. I've heard all kinds of conversations here about the criminals needing rehabilitation and these types of things, and the homeless and defecating on the street. The people that are defecating and urinating on the street are not homeless. They may be homeless, but they're inebriates and they're drug addicts. We have a serious problem in Anchorage with public inebriation and drunkenness. You can be homeless and not be a disgrace to society. You can live in your car. You can go to the Y. You can take a shower. You can take a bath. You can keep your affairs in order, and you can even hold down a job. Nothing says you have to have an address. So the problem in Anchorage, you keep hearing this buzzword of homelessness. That is not the problem. Our problem is with drugs and alcohol and inebriation, and this is one of our key problems. And if we do not hold people accountable for these things, then it's going to get worse. Accountability is the only deterrent that is going to solve it. We can't hold their hand. As this gentleman just spoke a moment ago, he's reformed. I applaud him. He made that decision. The courts did not make that decision for him. Putting him in prison where he had access to these programs is a plus. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, for being here. Questions from Assembly members? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
A quick note. My family fell victim to someone in their family being murdered recently also. So,
Sorry, sir.
Mr. Craney, Mr. Chair, quick, before you get started, is this being broadcast on the public?
We're recording the MP3 player. We're going to send that to Juno.
Okay, we're not recording. Thank you.
Because of the cost and trying to reset the whole TV system up, we couldn't afford doing that.
I just have people.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you for allowing us to voice our opinion. I've never really was involved with anything, didn't know anything about SB 91 until recently. Long-time Alaskan, always felt safe, wanted to raise my family here for that purpose, the safety. We were criminalized last week, car stolen, total. Not a big deal for me. We can replace that with another cheap car for our daughter, though there's many people here that cannot do that have their one vehicle for their families. Skipping through that, I've had 3 businesses, they've all been broken into, and unfortunately the deductible doesn't cover anything because it's the cost of replacing windows and theft. There's nothing that can be done with that. I've accepted that. I'm completely willing to, as I hate to say, pay more taxes for safety, put money or take it from somewhere for the safety, because now I'm looking over my shoulder when I get out of my car. I'm not a gun user, but I am certainly getting one now. Every night I wake up with a noise, is someone coming? Because every person that I talk to, I'm a hairstylist, and every client that I've had for the last 6 weeks has been hit with a crime of some sort. Nothing in comparison to the people that have lost their child, because if that happened, I would become a criminal. I have never done anything wrong. I have a very clean record. I do everything to help my community, but I would become a criminal. If those things happen to me, I would take matters into my own hands, absolutely. And I don't want to be a criminal. I would never do anything to go to prison, ever. I have a family. The people here are starting to get scared, and they are packing. They are putting guns on them. They're walking the stores with their guns on them. I mean, we don't want people to start becoming criminals because of the criminals. Now, I understand we have a budget. I don't know your budget. I do know that we can't pay for everything, but it does take money to make things work. Prioritizing that money. I know there's inebriates. I don't feel like they're the criminals so much, but the drug and alcohol problem is huge. Someone goes to jail and you let them right out. What is that telling them? This is easy. It's only $350, $700 to get out, and we'll do it again. Absolutely, why wouldn't you? But when they go to jail, if you can get your best bang for your buck, which is what I'm all about, always have been, you put them in jail, you get them immediate counseling and rehabilitation immediately. Now, most of them are drug-related issues. Some are just issues with their lifestyle. That rehabilitation, as we have one witness here today that said that he got rehab, they need to make jail time mandatory with rehab. Rehab is going to help these people. Job training. Don't get 10 different buildings that are costing us 10 different costs. One jail. You put them in the sections they need, get them the rehab, get them the sources they need for job training so that they have a future when they get out of prison.
Thank you, ma'am.
I just want the record to reflect that Representative Tamara has arrived.
Okay, welcome.
Also,
Any other questions for
I didn't catch your
her?
name.
John?
Christina Diaz.
I'm sorry, what was the last name?
Diaz, D-I-A-Z.
Thanks for being here, ma'am. Anybody else want to testify? Please come forward. Welcome to the meeting, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Brown, and I've lived in Alaska for more than 20 years. Back in July, I actually sent a very detailed email to Mr. Dunbar, Mr. Peterson, and then it's my understanding you forwarded it to Mr. Constant. Last year, I was the victim of a violent assault, an attack by a stranger. I've always considered myself to feel very safe in our city and to feel like if something was to happen to threaten my life, that I'd be able to defend myself. But after the assault, I actually started to live in fear. Fearful that this stranger knew where I lived, would come back to further harm me, steal my truck, break into my house. My security, my confidence, everything that made me me was affected that night, and I'm still trying to get it back. The municipal prosecutor offered the defendant the following deal for pleading guilty to an assault 4 charge. A $500 fine with $250 suspended, 90 days in jail with 90 days suspended, $200 for cost of appointed counsel, $50 for police charge, plus 3 years probation, $250 restitution for me because she had my truck keys, which had a key to my house, and she never returned them. They also agreed to not charge a subsequent disorderly conduct case that she had picked up after the assault. So someone who violently attacked a stranger paid a total of $500 and is now back on the streets. She was on the record boasting and bragging about the crime. The judge specifically told her that he tries to be optimistic in cases of first-time offenders, but in her case, he was confident she'd be back again. The defendant served no jail time and walked away from this crime with a $500 fine. As the victim, I'm left picking up the broken pieces with the feeling that justice was not served. Every day I hear more and more stories of our fellow Alaskans also becoming victims. Stolen vehicles, stolen property, violent attacks. I've witnessed car fires, shootings in residential neighborhoods next to an elementary school. Someone has tried to break into my house. Someone has broken into my vehicle. And last week, I witnessed a car drag a woman down my street. We want something better for our city. Unfortunately, no one on the assembly responded to my very detailed email. But I hope you're listening now. I want to feel safe, protected, and to have justice served if a crime is committed. Thank you.
Thank you. Question of Assembly members. Any questions from Assembly members? Eric?
It was a stranger. It wasn't a domestic violence issue.
Correct. It was a stranger attack, yes.
And when was the sentencing, just generally?
December 2016. And actually, Garen Todd, I saw her walk in. We've been in communication about this as well. So thank you for being here.
So one of the specific things we reference is that SB 91 limited it to a year of probation. So amongst all the ways that was an outrageously low penalty, under 91, even that 90 days that she had hanging over her head if she contacted you or did other things would be expiring very soon. Yeah, very soon. So even the 3 years of probation, that's some protection to you. That is, if she violates or contacts with you, that 90 days can be imposed. Under SB 91 will be gone soon.
I understand the conditions of her sentence, but it's my understanding that the sentence for assault for the maximum is $10,000 and 365 days in jail. So for this outcome, for a violent assault on a stranger, for someone to have no jail time and a $500 fine is completely ridiculous.
I agree. It was ridiculous, and then SB 91 makes it more ridiculous by meaning it's only 1 year of probation instead of 3. So you don't even have that.
I did not know that.
Thank you.
There are no other questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify? Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, I'm Tara Burns and I'm with the Community United for Safety and Protection. I'm here to ask you to help protect the sections of SB 91 that deal with safety for sex workers and sex trafficking victims, particularly the sections that allow for immunity in reporting heinous crimes and the sections that prevent sex workers and sex trafficking victims from being charged with trafficking themselves or each other. I first became involved in policy around sex trafficking when I was 16, and a Fairbanks district attorney decided to not press charges against my father for trafficking me because she thought that juries did not find teen prostitutes to be sympathetic victims. Since that time, I've spent about 2 decades working in almost every aspect of the sex industry, and I completed a graduate research project on the lived experiences and policy recommendations of people in Alaska's sex trade as part of my master's project at UAF. My research has been replicated at Brown University, and I travel all over the world talking to people about sex work and sex trafficking policy and research. I didn't have a chance to look at the resolutions until I was told they were up here. I did check in the back, so I'm sorry my testimony is slightly disorganized now that I've seen the resolutions. SB 54 proposes to remove subsections of Alaska Statute 11.66.130 and 135, which is sex trafficking in the third and fourth degree. And the subsections proposed to be removed prevent prosecutors from charging prostitutes with sex trafficking if they have not induced anyone into prostitution and their conduct amounts to prostitution, not sex trafficking. You've heard a lot of things about what sex trafficking is, but let's be clear that 11.66.130 and 135 speak only of having a place of prostitution, which can include a prostitute's home or hotel room, and of aiding or facilitating prostitution, which is so broad that one woman was charged with sex trafficking herself for aiding and facilitating her own prostitution. Things like forcing people into prostitution or having a prostitution enterprise are conduct defined in 11.66, 110, and 120, and there are no exceptions in those statutes for people engaged in prostitution. Legislative and administrative intent was clear in creating the sex trafficking statute in 2012 that the statutes were to be used against people who exploited and harmed sex workers, not against sex workers and sex trafficking victims themselves. But every single person the Department of Law charged under these statutes in the first 2 years was an alleged prostitute charged with prostitution of herself. In the same case, she was charged with trafficking of herself. Legislative intent was clear last year in creating the sections of Senate Bill 91 that SB 54 would remove, that sex workers who have not induced anyone into prostitution should not be charged with sex trafficking when their conduct amounts to prostitution. Despite this clear intent, the Department of Law has claimed that no one could be charged with trafficking themselves, even though they were clearly aware that they had filed these charges when SB 91 was created.
Ma'am, your time is up. Sorry. Question from Assembly members? Thank you for your testimony. We have other people to hear from. Thank you. We're taking a 5-minute break at 10:30, and then we'll continue after that. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Steve Duplantis, pastor from, one of the pastors from Anchorage Assembly. I spoke last Friday about the problems that we're having at the church, split tires during services, syringes, and not to mention, I didn't mention last week, that we're half a block away from Valley of the Moon Park, and we all know what goes on down there. I know of at least one family in our church that does not come anymore because they feel unsafe because of all the murders and things that had happened down there in the Valley of the Moon. But we're supposed to be helping with this situation. We're looking at restructuring our funding because we've got to get security now, because we don't know how to cope with it. I guess my big thing is this morning, because I did the testimony, I talked about the church last week. On a personal note, I live in South Anchorage. There's been vehicles pulling up behind my house. I have a service alley back there. Don't know what they're doing back there, late at night, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going out there with a weapon or anything, but if they come on my property, I know that my family is valuable to me, so I will protect them, just like my congregation. I will protect my congregation by all means, any means that I need to. And so I don't know what's going on with these people hanging out behind my house, and the police won't come out or whatever, so I just got to keep an eye on it. The vast majority of people here this morning want a repeal of SB 91. If it wasn't for Ms. Dembowski, I would have never known about you guys doing a resolution in support of fixing it. You know, if something needs to be fixed, it means it's broken. So we need to start from the beginning, and I know that people are worried about the sex trafficking stuff. That may need to be a separate bill on its own because that needs to be there. But it was added to SB 91 to push it through or whatever. But I want to know who you guys are hearing from to come up with a resolution to band-aid this thing, because the majority of the people here don't want SB 91. They don't want to fix it when it comes. All right? So who are you hearing from? If you're hearing from us this morning, we want Ms. Dembowski's resolution to go through, not you, the first one. Now see, hers has a whole bunch of pages. The other one has one page, and she's done her research on it. You know? So who are you representing? You know, if they're not here, and where'd you come up with that resolution? If they're not here this morning, I've heard, I think, 1 or 2 people that are in support of it. The rest of us aren't.
Thank you, sir. Question from the members. Thank you for your testimony. Good to see you again. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hello, my name is Pastor Dave Grisham with Last Frontier Evangelism, and I go to the same church as my brother Steve Plannis back here. And I just wanted to say that let's put this into perspective. If you passed a law that basically took away many of the criminal penalties for people not paying their taxes, what do you think would happen? Tax defaults would go through the ceiling, and I guarantee you the legislature would repeal that faster than you could even say it. It would be so fast it'd make your head spin. So maybe we need a law that takes away all the penalties for not paying our taxes, and maybe we'll have some perspective on this. Maybe it'll give lawmakers a little bit of sympathy for what people out here are going through. Anyway, my main point in what I wanted to come up and say is this, is that I agree with my brother back here that you don't need to fix something if it's broken, you need to repeal it. You don't need a patch. That's what we've been doing at the federal level for our tax system and all kinds of other ridiculous things over the years. And all you end up with is another law and another interpretation and more court cases and more fighting and bickering over how does this apply and all of that, when the simple resolution is just to repeal the darn thing in the first place. Just get rid of it. Because just adding another layer to things just makes things more complicated, and really what people want is just to have it repealed. And if you really want to help fix crime, well, the solution is what my brother and I support right here is Jesus Christ. If you want to see the jails empty, you want to see the churches full. The fuller the churches are, the more empty the jails will be. And that's really where we need to be putting our efforts, is into changing people's hearts and changing people's minds about their activities and their behaviors. You can't pass laws and fix people's hearts. That's really the source of crime in the world today. So anyway, that's all I had to say.
Question from Assembly members.
Not a question, but a quick comment. I just wanted to thank you. Last night you showed up in front of Identity Inc. and you single-handedly raised hundreds of dollars to support transgender issues. So thank you.
Okay. Welcome to the meeting, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Julie Moore, and I really have not been very familiar with this whole process till I've been listening to Amy on the radio. And last year, I worked downtown at the building, and I went out to get my car, and my car was gone. I know exactly where I parked it. It was my boyfriend's. I called the police. My car had been stolen. The car had been stolen. Come to find out, a couple days later, the car was actually located. The gentleman that had stole it had 2 other convictions for stealing cars. He had forged paperwork and tried to have the car title put into his name. Unfortunately, there was some documentation in there that had my name on it, so when he was picked up, he tried to convince people that I was trying to buy drugs from him, which is very far-fetched considering my family's experience with drugs and alcohol, which has been unfortunate. And we just got notified that not even a year later, this guy's going to be released from jail. And it's like, holy crap, this is the third time he's gotten caught doing this. What? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And you know what? I've lived in Alaska since I was 14 years old, and I'm now 56. My dad was a correctional officer in Oregon, Washington, and also here in Alaska. I know that there's things that go on in the jails that are not acceptable, but then I also know there's things that go on in the jail that people are not doing anything to help people. I do believe that people can be rehabilitated. I do believe that you have to work at it, and I think that it needs to be mandatory, that when you're sentenced for drug and alcohol or domestic violence charges, that mandatory, you have to get help. My one question is, we've been collecting all this money for selling the marijuana that's been passed. Why aren't they using some of that tax money to rehabilitate these people? Why aren't they using this money to set up centers to help these people? I am embarrassed. I am appalled that my state is number one for all of these things. Every one of us here should be embarrassed about that. And you know what? It doesn't seem like it's going to matter to anybody until it happens to one of your guys' family members, or it happens to one of the legislature members, and then finally something's going to happen. This bill, SB 91, is wrong. It's broken. We were broken before. This just makes it worse. You guys need to listen. Legislature needs to listen to us people. We're the ones that are getting affected. We're the ones that are being hurt. We're the ones that our stuff is being destroyed. We're also the ones that vote to put these people in office. We're the ones to vote to put you guys in office. We need to pay more attention as citizens as to what people are voting for, what they agree with, what they don't agree with. And I know my time is up, but I do appreciate it. But we all need to be more aware of who we're putting in office and what they stand to represent.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Crystal Godby. I'm with the Community United for Safety and Protection. I'm here to ask you to protect the section of Senate Bill 91 to prevent sex workers from being charged with trafficking themselves and each other when no one has ever been forced or induced. I was a sex worker for 3 years. I didn't do it because I liked work. I did it because I was a homeless drug addict. I now have been sober for 20 months. When I worked, we women knew we could not call the police if anything went wrong. We had to stick together and look out for each other. We talked about clients and shared good clients. We shared hotel rooms and we gave each other rides to calls and waited outside to make sure our friends were safe. Sometimes we hired people to drive us to outside. When you turn our safety measures into felonies, it makes us less safe. People don't want to look out for each other. People don't want to look out for each other if it means catching felonies, and it puts our lives in danger. If Jacqueline Goodwin had someone waiting outside for her, she might still be alive today. Please ask me to protect the safety of our people in Alaska Step Straight, and thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thanks for being here. We're going to take one more person, and we're going to take a 5-minute break.
My name is Grant Rebney. My family comes from Cantwell, originally from Oxnard, California, just north of LA. Rough area. I remember in high school we had a murder per capita higher than LA. Idiots in my high school were excited about this. It was not a good area. Brought my family up here. Came here to take care of my grandmother almost 7 years ago on a short trip. Grandma's still doing good. We're still here. My family's here. We own a home here. Unfortunately, we made the news here 3 weeks ago when 3 jerks tried to break in the back door of my home. I was at work in my office, 3:30 in the morning, Sunday morning. They were ramming my door. I opened the window, I yelled at them. One of them apologized almost, said, "Hey, it's okay, we're leaving, we're out of here." And then somebody went to jar my door again. When people hear about this, they say, "Oh, they were probably intoxicated. They were probably high, like it's okay." My only regret from this incident was I did not permanently stop them. I didn't have that time and had the opportunity to do so. The cops took 2 hours to get to our home. I had my wife, my children asleep in our home. And when the cops did finally come, they said, if they weren't armed, there's probably nothing we could do about it. 3 men trying to break into my home, even after confronted, have bad intentions. Part of this bill as I've been told, is if they weren't armed, there's very little could be done. That's bogus. Because of this, I haven't had good sleep until 2 nights ago, so I finally got my cameras put up. Funny enough that that's what happened, but then I could finally rest. I was getting maybe 2 hours of sleep a night. One camera went up, 24 hours later, another camera went up. What do you know? 4:45, 2 people walked right through my gate, opened my front gate, walked right through my property to access my back gate. They're very comfortable. You can see it in the video. They knew what they were doing. They knew where they were going. My wife was home. The alarm, the new camera made the buzz. She goes out the back porch, yells at them. They could care less. I saw this 15 minutes after it happened. I was 10 minutes from home. I stepped on the gas. The individual, first one had a puppy on his back. When I found him on his bicycle still, about half a mile away from our home. I pulled the truck over. He could care less. I confronted him. He acted like he didn't know what he was, like he acted like it wasn't something that actually happened. I told him I had him on footage. And I let him know what was going to happen to him if he ever did it again. Since then, this was 2 days ago. That night I put locks on my gates. What more can I do? The irritation is that all of this stuff keeps happening. People are breaking into cars at home. 2 nights ago in Evergreen. The night before that, right on 32nd. This needs to be addressed. Our own law enforcement says, as they show up at our house, 2 hours later after someone tried to violently break into our home with bad intentions, armed or not, there's very little we could do. Thank you.
Question from Assembly members. Thank you. We're going to take a short break, 5 minutes, and we'll be back. Time of 5 minutes for you. Thank you.
This one's good. Yeah, they're both ARs.
So they can go people.
That's all that's right.
Are you looking for Dick or Forrest or me? So who's here from the police department?
I don't know. They don't work for me. They work for the mayor. They get cheap answer. I don't have an answer for you. I would have expected them to do the show. Just like we had maybe 2 legislators.
I didn't do all that much.
I know.
But the public needs to do it.
As soon as you start saying, "Don't touch me," I'm like, I'm not going to touch you.
Ranting and raving, hasn't testified yet. I mean, it's like,
I know.
I mean, and he had good reason.
Anyway, we're taking a 5-minute break, so I'm going to get out of here, Steve.
I'll be right back. See you
need 5 minutes. We've been trying about it.
Okay.
We're over by 5 minutes.
We're over by 5 minutes. The bad thing is the mayor's as I said, we're not going to support it. We're not saying it. Does that mean no police officers show up? Let's do it. You guys look so happy to be here. I'm sorry. That's what we get paid big dollars for.
That's right.
For some members who return their seats, please, we'll get started. Thank you for staying here to testify. We appreciate your testimony. Welcome to the meeting, ma'am.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Kim Zello. I'm here today representing Fallen Up Ministries, and there was a few things I wanted to share with you. I have personally interviewed 2 inmates who are rehabilitated. I was told prisoners in jail are routinely denied treatment. There either is no treatment or they are routinely denied treatment. My own daughter was jailed for the first time offense, a DUI, at age 21 at Matsu pretrial. I was made to wait for 40 minutes, then very rudely denied visitation. Lengths of sentencing need to be addressed. People who kill people and do worse crimes get less time than those with drug charges. Addicts need treatment and treatment programs. They need rehabilitation in prison. Reducing recidivism, repeat offenders returning to jail costs society and taxpayers money. Thank you.
Thank you for testimony. Anybody else wishing to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Thank you. Mark Mescal, NUS, DAUN. Probably remember me from the city hall. I've done a lot of research since the city hall meeting, and I've learned some new things, hit dead ends on other things, came to different realizations. I understand that we're not here today or any other day to speak to you guys to convince you to change the laws, or simply putting our voices on record. So I invite anybody that's even considering testifying, please stand and testify, even if it's for short, come a minute or 2. We're going to pull the MP3 out and send it to Juno and hope that Juno listens to it. So I want to put my voice on the record. Again, we need to repeal SB 91. We don't need to fix it slowly over the next decade. I think here's John Coghill's sponsor statement. Let me just read the first sentence. Senate Bill 91 implements proven practices to reduce recidivism, keep Alaskans safe, hold offenders accountable, and control corrections spending. So I think it's a miss on all of that, and we need to start over. I'm not saying that we don't need something similar to SB 91, but it sure doesn't need to be as it reads now. As far as we heard from Matt Grosky, the Ocean View resident at City Hall, and he mentioned broken window theory. I'm a student of psychology myself. That's where I found an academic passion, and so I understand broken window theory. And for those of you that weren't present at that meeting, it goes a little something like, once one window of a building is broken, if it is not fixed immediately, days later you'll find many more windows, if not all of them, broken. SB 91 is teaching the criminals that nobody's going to be paying attention to them breaking windows. And I'm not okay with that. I don't think anybody here today with us is okay with somebody breaking into a house or stealing a vehicle and getting their, if they do get their goods returned, nothing happens to the offender. That's not teaching. Even the people that aren't committing those crimes are learning from that pattern of behavior, and that's not okay. I grew up on Diamond Drive in your neighborhood.
You didn't live far from me.
Not far. Gary Brandt was a safe house. Our neighborhood had neighborhood watch signs at every other street. If somebody could, anybody here today have a neighborhood watch sign in your neighborhood? Is it? There's 30 here, so maybe 10% of the municipalities are neighborhood watch. Where's my dinger?
I know. Just
I
wrap it up.
want to see that city back, and I know that we were broken before SB 91, and we're going to stay broken if we don't repeal it. So please, Juno, if you're listening, think about going back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Question from Assembly members? Thanks for being here. How you doing again?
My name's Ed Larrabee, and I live at the in the Lake Otis Tudor area. So I've seen a lot of crime. I've been there for 25 years. I've seen on my balcony, I'm looking out and I see crime. But now I'm going to tell you the solutions. He hit it right on the nail. Block watch. When neighbors get to know neighbors, then they communicate. When they communicate, it increases security. And guess what the criminal hates? He hates that spotlight that's all of a sudden put on him. We're watching really close. Not just one, you got about 5 or 6 people. And we don't rely on the cops anymore. It takes them 25 minutes to get from their cop stop to the area where they're needed. So now you have vigilantes. You do have people that go out and they're armed to the tooth and they're just going for walks with their little 45 and their dogs. You got that area now. And guess what? Crime really went down. Communication is everything. The people need to come together and communicate with each other in that area and have a big sign saying, hey, you're being watched. You know, I hate to say it, but our country is not like the country it was 50 years ago. Here's another idea. Put God back in the schools. Because the reason why is, at least they know if the people don't catch it, God will. Put God back in the schools, and anybody that tries to take them out, get rid of them. Okay, now here's a third idea. I'm pro-life. I believe live and let live. But the death penalty makes it a little bit better, because the reason why is we got liberal judges. What do? They take people that commit just terrible crimes, killing, stealing. They take these people and they turn them back into the society without being treated. Okay? Now, it becomes a college for criminals, the prisons. So, the third thing would be the death penalty. Because by killing that criminal, you're maybe saving 2 or 3 victims. That would get out, he would get out, and he'd go out and kill some more. That's basically it.
Ed, thank you for being here.
Thank you all. You all have a good day.
Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome.
Well, good morning. My name is Warren West, and I'd like to thank you all for having us here today. Because like the previous gentleman said, communication is one of the biggest things we need in our city. So thank you. For many years, all of us have heard about crime on TV or seen it, but we've never really been personally experienced. And even my esteemed son, and Chris Constant here, has had recent run-ins with the criminals, as I myself. And it's not something I look forward to, and it's not something I look seeing to continue. My idea is a little bit like the neighborhood get-togethers. Last night, my neighbor went out to dinner, and as I was turning off the lights at 9:30, I noticed my security light in the alley come on. Saw 2 people with hoods breaking into his house. Immediately opened the back door and says, "Hey, you look very good on camera here." They immediately pulled their hoods down over their faces and ran like heck. I called the police, and they showed up this morning at 8:30 instead of 9:30 last night. Checked to see that the hasp was, chiseled, and fortunately they didn't steal anything because, our neighbors are watching out for each other. What I would like to see in the city is, I know it's a big money issue, but I'd like to see some ideas without the funds come into being, like neighbors helping each other. And also, I'd like to find some way for you people on the assembly to work together with the local businesses in town and find some way of empowering them to have a better stop-loss program. A couple days ago, I bought a piece of hardware over at the Northway Mall at the Home Depot. A gentleman, well, he wasn't really a gentleman, but he was. He was walking out the door, he had his thumb bleeding. The two stop-loss guys right next to me said, "Sir, can we help you with your thumb because you're bleeding all over our floor?" And he said, "No." Then they turned around and asked him, well, he said, "Are you going to return that $95 tool you ripped out of that package and cut your thumb on?" He's got it in his hand. He said, "No, I've never heard this in my life." The guy was not running like most criminals do when they steal stuff. He was walking, taking his time. He told the stop-loss guy, "No, I do not have to because SB 91 says it's under $250. And he says, "And if you stop me going out the door," he says, "I have empowerment to sue you." So we got to stop this and just find some way to empower our store owners. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, thank you. My name is Naomi Sweetman, Sweetman, and I want to thank you for taking up this issue. It's a big issue. I've recently had a security system installed in my home so I could sleep at night. There's a lot of crime going on. And as has been testified before, it's a problem, and it was a problem before SB 91. Years ago, I worked with the addiction, and I've worked with criminals, and the bottom line is, until the individual wants to make a change in their thought process or their addiction, it doesn't happen. I don't care how much money you throw at it. I don't care how much rehabilitation you put at it. It doesn't make a difference. I think that we have to repeal SB 91. It was an attempt to fix a system that's already broken. It's a Band-Aid itself. More Band-Aids isn't going to help. We have to hold people accountable. I work in Alaska and I work in Oregon. In Oregon, when people are out on probation or parole, those people are held accountable. They violate their conditions, they go back to jail until they're willing to comply. In Alaska, even in the 90s and the 80s, when people violate their probations of parole or probation, they don't go back to jail. They go in front of a judge who says, you need to comply. If people are held accountable, we're not going to stop our problem. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for being here, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Nina Mann, M-A-N-N. I know you really don't have any direct control on what happens with this bill, but I really appreciate you taking the time to make sure that Juneau hears about it and gets at least the public feedback. And I hope that you take this feedback from everybody that's been here and think of Anchorage itself and what's happened to Anchorage. As I've lived here, I bought a property that, my home over by Campbell Creek so that I could walk along the creek, enjoy Alaska. I haven't done that now in 5 years. Even with my dog, it's not safe. My business that I'm working at now, in the last month, we've had 5 vehicles stolen. I manage property and we're trying to lease out space, and it's like, oh, by the way, we've had this much criminal activity here, and I have to notify all the tenants and potential tenants that, try and keep clubs in the cars so that it at least is not as attractive as the one without one. Yeah, they can get through it fast. My own home area, we've had a drug dealer problem. For a year solid, I had drug dealers living by me that were using children that were in the first grade and kindergarten as drug mules to rent out the drugs to the car, get the money and take it back inside, knowing that those children wouldn't have anything happen to them. I called Child Protective Services, I called the police, I called Homeland Security, I called the DEA, I called everybody that was listen. The police told me, sorry. I gave video and license plate numbers of all of the drug dealers' clients, and for over a year lived in absolute terror in my house of what these people were doing. And when I told the police, I'm like, hey, these poor children, if I brought them into my house, gave them a meal, they were running around at 11:30 at night in the summer with just a pair of pajama bottoms on and barefoot, looking for somebody to take care of them. If I took them into my house, gave them a meal, gave them some clothes, helped them with their homework, you bet I'd be going to jail. But our system is broken on so many levels that I think we have to be the grassroots to start to fix it. And you guys are my grassroots. You're my grassroots. And I think if you had a time when you could say, let's get our community together and everybody throw ideas together on how to fix this, you would find that you would be overwhelmed with the amount of people that have really good ideas and are really willing to put their skin in the game and help our city get back to what it should be. And that's all I have.
Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, my name is Tommy Tuttle, and I'm a senior at West Anchorage High School. I'm here today on behalf of the victims in Alaska and the crime that has been affecting my family and many others. I recently got my check stolen from school in broad daylight on school
Ma'am,
grounds.
could you pull the microphone down close to your mouth so we can hear you better? Thank you.
I got my car stolen from school, broad daylight, during school grounds and school hours. When I went to my school and hoped for some evidence of security cameras, they replied and said they did not have any cameras in the parking lots around the school. When I heard this, I was thinking about what if it was worse? What if it was a student that was harmed or taken or abused in any way, and my school wouldn't be able to help in any other situation that could have been? The school where I claim to have a safe community is not to me anymore. The school did not have anything to support me with, but I was mainly concerned for everyone else's safety. And they said that they were upgrading the cameras a month into school, but they had all summer to do this. I felt violated, I felt scared, I felt uncomfortable being at school. I had so many personal items, including photos of me, my friends, my home address, information about me, and some of these items were irreplaceable. As a student, I felt scared, and these past few weeks attending school have been hard for me because I'm in fear of something else worse could happen, not just to me, but to anyone at any other school. And all I want is a safer environment for everyone not living in fear.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions? Thank you. Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hi, my name is Matt Nolan. I wasn't actually planning to speak here today, but I've heard a lot of people talking about a lot of different elements of crime itself. And I don't think that's why we're here today, but it's important for you folks to hear that. What I do think is important is that you understand, I've done a lot of things in my life, including 4 years as the president of a union. I understand there are a lot of political ramifications for things that bodies like yours do. But I have to tell you, crime in the city has created such a situation that I know almost all of my friends carry firearms, and they will not hesitate to defend themselves or someone else. That's where your city is going. I have to applaud Ms. Domboski. I haven't always liked what you stood for, but she is the only one who appears to have recognized how bad this bill was. I have actually read this bill from cover to cover for a municipal agency I worked for at one point. It is not good. Now, there are a lot of good things in it, but those things need to be addressed separately. We need to stand united in saying, get rid of Senate Bill 91, period. And if we don't, what's going to happen is, I don't know how many legislators are actually going to take the time to watch this, but if you send a message to them saying, our people said no, get rid of this, the biggest city in the state telling our legislators who represent us that they need to do something about this, that will be an impact. As far as the rest of what's going on here, perhaps what you need to do is hold another meeting with perhaps the school district and the police chief and that sort of thing so that some of these concerns can be addressed. But as far as you go, you are the people who are going to make the impact, not us. We come in here to address you. You have to make the impact. And if you don't, then you have failed us. And if you fail us, we will not be happy with it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Assembly members? Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Solon Mitchell. I'm a resident of the East Side. Retired U.S. Air Force. I retired, came back to Anchorage in 1992 with my family. And since that time, I've seen a big change in the city. I was security policeman. I put 24 years in. Then I came back and I joined Department of Corrections, 20 years. And with this bill, my biggest concern is with law enforcement and their response. My church has been broken into or vandalized 4 times since this bill has been put into place. We have neighbors that have called APD and told them that there are things going on in the area. They told us, or told her, that they couldn't send anybody because it was a community place. But this was 12 o'clock at night. People not having any kind of engagement at that time. So we came in, or the secretary came in, and someone had broken into the building, and we caught him. He was taken downtown. It was a misdemeanor. They told us that if it was less than $1,000, then nothing could be done. Our insurance was over $1,000 to get it put out. So therefore, there was nothing done to the individual. Another time we came back, the building was vandalized again. 4 or 5 years ago, a little longer, the church was burned down. So my thing is, we know the police are trained, and they cannot come or respond to minor incidents when they are tied up on other incidents. But with this bill, it has caused criminals to be emboldened. They know more about what will happen to them than the normal citizens. And so in turn, they know that if they're caught breaking into my car, and if I come out and engage them, they get hurt, I'm going to be the one going to jail because I'm assaulting them. So there has to be something, and we voted you good people in because we hope you will make a difference for Anchorage. And so in some cases you have. There are some times that there are certain reasons that you want to be on this particular assembly, but we hope it will be to help the betterment of Anchorage. We're the ones that you serve, whether through, I know my time is out, but I hope that you will listen and they will change this bill. Working in the Department of Corrections, and before they had people knowledgeable of the criminal justice system that could give ideas, but they were weeded out because the people wanted new changes. But these changes are not working, people. We have to do something better, right?
Question Assembly members. Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify on this item, please come forward.
My name is Dave Burlingame. I live on the hillside. I've been in Anchorage for about 36 years. I have a business in Midtown near Hardwick and 36. Our business has been broken into multiple times since this bill has been passed. One night, one evening, we got three trucks stolen out of our yard. And the cops, we had them on video. And just like the gentleman said before, the guys breaking in don't care. They look up at the camera and wait because there's nothing that the police will do. We found one of our vehicles parked at a gas station, and we were sitting there waiting with the cops because we didn't have a key for the vehicle. 3 guys drove up to try and restart the vehicle who had the keys, and the cops just said, well, if you can give the keys back to this guy, he needs to get his truck back to his shop. I mean, that's what this bill does. You know, I know people who have had a 3rd DUI and are bragging that they don't have to go to jail because they have a wellness program now. They just have to go to a class once a week. You know, that's just wrong. You know, I mean, there is no repercussions for anything these guys do. You know, and anybody that's especially in Midtown, that, you know, in Hillside, my barn's been broken into 5 times. It's just, you know, something has to be done. We need to get rid of this bill and fix it. And I'm tired of the criminals having more rights than the people.
Hi, my name is Dorota Costura, and I'm from Chiguet. And last week I mentioned about a house that was in our neighborhood that was a drug house that was close to the school. It was one of my big concerns because in our little community we look out for each other, but that house has been a problem. And this week, or last week actually, you probably heard about an individual who was shot in Seward. He lived at that place. So we're not helping people. There's a dead man that is probably would be alive if he was in jail serving, if he was in jail awaiting his case to come before the court, but he was out. He was released on almost no bail. And so we have another victim. So SB 91 isn't fixing anything. It is a terrible mistake, and we need to repeal it. The legislature does, and thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. And whatever you can do, I hope that there's other people here with other concerns that have some of the legislation that they want to stay in 91. That needs to be addressed. It's important, and I feel for them, but I want to see this thing repealed, and then we need to back way up and think about what we're doing. We need specific and general deterrents for crime. That's what's going to stop it. In this young man's case, it would have been a very specific thing for him to be in jail, and he would be alive today. So we're not helping criminals. We're not helping anybody. So let's back up and be human beings and care about everybody and do what's right. And let's give some structure and some values and some really strict rules to follow, so that people, especially people that are addicts, need some structure, and they need a community, and they need support. And we're not giving it to them. We're failing everything. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and what you're doing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sam Wilson, new homeowner. Very proud of Anchorage. When I first moved here back in '93, always loved to, come up here, see the big town, But up until recently, ever since this SB 91, I've seen, things go down. I've raised kids that are here. I mean, I take pride in my community. I want to go through and I want to show them, how beautiful it is. New homeowner, I'm proud. But this is taking it all away. We've called cops. We've tried to have, stuff done with it. I'm to a point where I had to put my kids through martial arts so that they could protect themselves in case any situation. 16 years old, he's got to take a taser just in case anybody tried to jump him or anything. So, it's really gotten that bad. So, as this block, I heard somebody talk about
coming together as a community. When I first moved into this, new home and everything, it was really nice. Things started out well. At the same time that I moved in, we ended up having a drug dealer who lived across the street. It took them 9 months to finally get them out. Right after that, we ended up getting another drug dealer to turn around and move right next to us. That escalated to a point that there was even more drug dealers. There was friends of drug dealers. All of a sudden, the whole block was nothing but criminals. So how could we go through and how could we come together? Go through and stop the problem where it is, end SB 91, and let's stop calling it Los Angeles.
Thank you, sir.
Good
Welcome,
morning,
ma'am.
Assembly. Thank you for being here. My name is Casey Pellegrini, and I have had my truck stolen recently, and I was notified when I called the police that they wouldn't come out, and I could file a complaint online or come down. And it was, I thought to myself, man, this must be happening all over. And of course, when you watch the news, it is. I mean, there's no penalties for misdemeanors. Now it's a misdemeanor, not a Class C felony. There's just got to be something more. You guys got to repeal this. And thanks for listening to us today. Hopefully, all of us can come together and give you guys some passion for putting it through to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. My name is Kurt Burgoyne. I've lived in Anchorage for the last 50 years, and I also, like everybody else, have seen the crime go down or go substantially higher. Just a second, let me get my butterflies under control here.
Take your time.
First, I'd like to voice my support for AR 2017-341 with a request to ask the legislature to repeal SB 91. SB 91 was passed with a lot of good intentions, but we all know there's a famous road that's paved with good intentions. Some of the things that I have seen through non-professional contact with police departments throughout the state and drug rehabilitation facilities is the officers right now are directed to not even pick up somebody that's only a citation. What is a citation? If the person doesn't have enough heroin or opioids on his person or in his vehicle to be a saleable amount, it's a citation. It's going to waste that officer's time for 4 to 6 hours just to deal with that one citation when there's more urgent things for him to take care of. As I understand it, that would normally, or prior to SB 91, be a felony level charge. SB 91 should be repealed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting.
Thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. My name is Janelle Graham. I was born and raised here in Anchorage. Lived here my whole life and I love it. I love Alaska. This past year, this past summer, crime has really affected my life. So I just wanted to come up here and comment on it. I live in Midtown Anchorage and pretty safe neighborhood. My neighbors lived there for 20 years, so it's been safe. We've had some robberies recently, some car thefts, breaking into cars. My neighbor's had her car stolen twice. My other neighbor has had her car broken into twice. They had a soft top and they cut it open multiple times to get in, even though there's a zipper right next to it, but still cut it open. And everyone in my neighborhood is scared. I live in a cul-de-sac and there's multiple cul-de-sacs in our area. So we installed security cameras recently. We went to Costco, bought a big pack, and installed them ourselves. And that same night, there was someone who came in to my carport at 2:30 a.m., looked right up at the camera, and then went right up to my front door and tried opening my door while I was sleeping in my house.
It really did scare me quite a bit. I do have a shotgun in my house, I have dogs, I have pepper spray, so I'm not really that too scared, but I do have neighbors that are elderly people living on their own, 2 elderly women in my cul-de-sac where they can't protect themselves if something happens. It's really scary living in my area right now. My neighbor has had their house broken into. We did have a police car sit out one night, which was nice, but this has been going on for a few months, and we keep having people pass through our neighborhood, stealing stuff, opening fences, jumping fences in the middle of the night, and we feel like we can't do anything to help it. So many of my neighbors have gotten cameras, so many of them have gotten lights. I blew up a picture of the person on video, and I posted his picture on my door saying, "Stay off my property." I also gave it out to my neighbors, laminated. They have it as well. But we still have people coming through our neighborhood even with those signs. We feel like we can't do anything. One last thing I want to comment on is that last year I started going to the dog park over on Arctic, great dog park. We would see maybe 12, 13 dogs there at a time. We would also see children there playing with the dogs. Now you go there and there's maybe 1 or 2 and that's it. Right outside of the dog park, there's lots of people that hang out there intoxicated, doing drugs, publicly urinating, catcalling. There was a shooting there. It's not a safe place anymore. No one feels safe being there. People are patrolling the cars that are parked in the parking lot of that dog park, so I don't even feel safe parking my car there. Someone did check out my car last weekend, I saw them, so I won't be going there anymore. So no more parks, and I don't feel safe at night where I live.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams. I spoke briefly a few days ago, so I'm going to keep this short. I'm on the record for wanting to repeal SB 91. I also want to acknowledge Ms. Dembowski for her efforts and support, basically supporting all of us and what we believe in, and that's repealing it. Sitting here listening today, and I wasn't really going to say anything, but I needed to say something. You've heard a lot of testimony today about how the Anchorage Police Department has not shown up, whether it's 2 hours or 7 hours. Now we're talking about an area that you have control over, okay? I realize SB 91 is a state issue, but this, what we're talking about right now, in the APD, the Anchorage Police Department, not showing up is your area, okay? I have a house in Termagant. I own the house. I pay property taxes. I've lived in this town for 37 years. If I make a phone call to 911, I don't expect to be on hold for 2 or 3 minutes. I also don't expect APD to not show up, or, you know, several people here have mentioned, I have a gun, and, you know, I don't want to use it. I don't want to be the criminal. I don't want to be the person who goes to jail. I want the police department to show up. So if there's some kind of argument about whether or not the police department is well-funded or not, I think what is very obvious here is that all of you need to look at that budget, and let me tell you what, if it's not properly funded, get it properly funded, okay? I don't want to be the criminal, and I don't want to wait an hour for the police to show up. I know there was an accident right there at the corner of Tudor and Arctic, where a car flipped up on the other car. It took hours for the police to show up because no one was hurt. This kind of stuff is unacceptable. This is not the town I grew up in, and this is not the town I want to live in. So thinking about what you guys do have control over, let's think about that police department and find out what the hell is going wrong. Something is going wrong there, and we need to get it fixed. That's on all of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Jack. I live over in Fairview. My house has been robbed 3 or 4 times. There's a shooting near my house every couple of days. Cars get stolen, broken into, people have sex in the parking lot across the street. And all of this predates SB 91 by a decade. I hear a lot of crime going on in Anchorage these days, and everybody's freaking about this sudden crime problem. Welcome to the party. It's been like that in my neighborhood for a long time. Criminals are made. They don't just show up because somebody passed a law called SB 91. There's a lot of things that led to the problems we're having today. You can't defund the schools and cut police budgets by 40% and expect there not to be consequences. The problems that caused the situation we're in right now go back decades. This is a generation of kids that don't have jobs, they don't have schools. Oh, I'll get a job up on the slope. You know the cut you're paying up there now? I mean, it's not what it used to be. If we really want to fix crime in this city and most of the other cities, there's a lot of problems that go back a long time that we got to deal with. The upside of this is that drug problems causing crime in a city is not a new thing. It's happened all over the world for hundreds of years. And other cities have solved this problem. We have somewhere to look. We can look at Boston and say, how did Kathleen Turner turn around the gang problem in the early 90s? We can read about it online. We don't even have to go to the library. We don't have to wonder how Portugal solved its drug problem. We can read about it in our living room. They legalized drugs and took all the money they used to spend on cops, and they opened rehabs. That's what SB 91 was supposed to do. We were supposed to straighten out the law enforcement area of our state government and put the money back into rehabs and education for the kids. But we didn't because we ran out of money. I don't have an opinion about SB 1 because I don't actually think it matters. A drug addict will rob your car whether or not there's a law. That's going to happen. He needs the dope. He doesn't care about the law. I don't really have any solutions. But I strongly urge this assembly and state legislatures to look at what other cities have done to actually solve this problem instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify? Otherwise, we'll shut the meeting down if we don't have anybody to testify. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Bill Seitz, spelled S-E-I-T-Z. Thank you all for being here and discussing this. When SB 91 was in front of the House for debate, Representative Andrew Josephson submitted a slew of amendments, and I believe all of them failed. During this time, Bob Lynn voted with him over half of them. Bob Lynn's a Republican. He was defeated. What I'm saying is, I believe, recalling, most of the amendments were for sentencing and classification. And there were some on both sides that had real problems with it. And I think they had real concerns. And I think SB 91 was, they were reacting to the recidivism. The current bill there was at 58 or whatever. It's a reaction to 91. I think you're going to continually have reaction, as the police chief said when he rolled out the new, where he's putting different people for different results. He says we're reacting to them. We seem to be reacting to the criminals all the time. And I think that we need, on the state level, a standing committee to continually be looking at the statistics of where the crime is and what needs to be done and the sentences and stuff so they continually be changing them because we're way behind on the curve. I suggest with APD, they consider changing their non-emergency number to 311. Currently it's 786-8900. I don't know if anybody knows that or not, but I think when people get in trouble, they automatically dial 911. A lot of them could dial a lesser number and it would free up 911 for the more important calls. I think that really happens when we have our snowstorms and ice storms at the beginning of the year, and hopefully that would maybe make things more efficient. I also suggest that they consider body cameras for their bike patrols and foot patrols because
in places that showed to help, and it's just something to consider. I don't think everyone needs, I don't think all APD needs them everywhere, but I think they would be a good tool to maybe utilize in certain instances. I feel a lot of the crime we look at, the bottom line on it is drugs. I believe, and I've talked to people, anyone who listens to me, I believe we need drug education in schools. I believe that need elementary, the middle schools and the high schools. I believe that, like over at Arctic and, well, the guy with the paint store that got killed, and the guy said he was high on meth, is why he did it. I mean, the guy that killed the same age as I am. He went to West, I went to East. I mean, I really felt sick about that. But the thing is, I believe drug education in school, I cannot tell anybody not to use drugs, but we can give knowledge to these kids so hopefully they can make the right decisions in their life. A lot of times when you listen, they say, well, we started when we were teens. That's high school. That's, you know, the school environment. I think that's something that we really just everywhere need to look at. I heard on the radio the other day, fentanyl, I believe, which is a synthetic heroin, that you can go online if you want to order from China, pay for it with Bitcom, have it delivered by Amazon. I don't see how any police force in the world can combat that. That's why I feel drug education is a way to go. I wish you all the best, and yes, I think we're all kind of on the same page. And if this got to be a continuation deal, as he said, because it goes in cycles and it changes, and what was the major crimes one year will be different the next year. So we gotta like continually be looking at this from here on out. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Buck has a question for you, sir.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for your testimony. Mr. Chair, I just like the record to reflect that my representative, Representative Catherine Tilton, is here today.
Mr. Frank has a question for you, sir.
Just a comment, actually. Thank you for your testimony, and I did want to let you know that Chief Dahl is working with dispatch to research implementing a 311 non-emergency number.
Thank you.
Welcome to the meeting.
Hi, my name is Anne Maria Skolkoff. A little nervous.
Just take a deep breath, it'll work out all right.
So, next week my husband and I are going to be celebrating our first wedding anniversary. And it's a little bit bittersweet because last year we purchased our first home in Anchorage. And lucky us, we ended up next to drug dealers. And when you're in that position, you see every kind of behavior that there is. You see stolen cars come by all the time. You hear gun shootings, you see bizarre behavior. You're always worried about your safety and your children's safety. So, one of the things that does need to happen is SB 91 does need to be repealed. One of the other things that needs to happen in the community is that we need to empower landlords. Nowadays, with the climate changing, with drug dealers, a lot of them are renters, and it is impossible for the landlords to evict. But when the APD is there like 30 different times on 30 different calls, at that point, it seems like it would be just cause that these landlords have a way of getting these people out of the neighborhood, because it's not affecting just those people. It's affecting at least 50 other people in the neighborhood.
Take a deep breath, anything else you want to say? I know you're holding your breath, but don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere.
In our situation, it was really difficult because the cops had been by so many times, and they actually told us we are aware, that these are dealers. Unfortunately, they're doing it in their abode or in their vehicles, and unless, we see it in front of us, there's nothing that we can do. Just keep calling, and the city is going to be fining them $500 that they're never going to pay. So something really does need to happen, like with the housing situation as well. I think that's a really good way to hopefully resolve some of the community problems like in the neighborhoods.
Mr. Croft has a question for you, ma'am.
Give you a second to breathe. Can you send me that location? Because at the state level, I was part of a group that made the ability for them to find them. I understand what you're saying, and that's sort of meant to be a step. Sometimes then landlords perk up, and when they're actually, sometimes they don't, and we have to take the next step. And so there are next steps we can take, and I'd like to
What would often happen, is that they would say, we're trying to evict them, it's the middle of winter, we can't get them out because of laws.
Well, we're working on more of a power to be able to do more there, but I'd love to know that particular instance.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And the only other thing that I can think of is maybe all of the residents of Anchorage need to start selling coffee beans out of their residences.
Coffee beans. Any other questions? You did a great job, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the meeting.
Figured I'll follow on behind it. My name is Joanne Noble, N-O-B-L-E. I'm in District 5. So, again, dark light. I'm going to follow on behind her thing because I had a set of drug dealers, shop, got it shut down this summer. But it took us a year to do it because, and I don't blame it on 91 because the problem was already here before that. Welcome to the rest of the Anchorage because our neighborhoods already had it and it just spread. However, landlord thing. The landlord was getting fined. Eventually, the police department showed up, and one of those times the sergeants looked at me and said, "We can't keep coming. The landlord told us not to." So, now I've got APD spread too thin, and I've got them having landlords telling them not to show up because they don't want to have to keep paying the fine because they can't get them out. You've tied the hands of APD, they've tied the hands of the landlords because it's winter, because there's squatters' rights. So I have to deal with the meth lab. I have to deal with the chop shops. I have to deal with the school bus stops in front of the house. I have to deal with the broad drive-by shootings. I have to plug the bullet holes in the houses and in the people. I'm the one. Not APD, not EMS, me. We are the ones doing that. So, SB 91, it's affecting your city. It is. But the problem was here before that. When other areas chose to ignore what was happening in my neighborhood, it spread. Welcome to Los Angeles. The rest of us have lived for a long time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify? Welcome to the meeting, sir.
Hey, thank you. For the record, I'm Don Jones. I live over on the east side. I am in support of repealing SB 91 in your resolution 341 to go down towards the legislature. We've heard a lot of testimony today on a personal level on how crime has affected our city and our citizens here, our Alaskans. I'd like to throw one more data point to you, and that is how it's affecting big business. Because I walked into Lowe's over on Tudor and was standing there having a conversation. Inside of 15 minutes of having a conversation with a friend, we saw two different individuals walk out the front door with somewhere between $500 and $1,000 in tools, just hit the door and keep on going, okay? When I talk to the Lowe's employees, they challenge them for their receipt, but they cannot pursue them. That's partly their corporate policy. Only their loss prevention can go outside the door. The second time it happened, an older gentleman went behind them because they were yelling at him, He followed him. I followed the gentleman out just to make sure what was going on, see what was going on. They jumped in a car and had taken off. Loss prevention said to us, you guys should not get involved. You should not be coming out here. You can get hurt. He pulled up his shirt, showed him his 45. I pulled up mine, showed him my 9mm. I said, I got his hat. Okay? So that's really where it is citizens in Anchorage are feeling like you have got to go everywhere armed, you've got to go packing, and you've got to do something about it, and they're starting to. But I'm more concerned about our economic impacts. If these businesses keep taking the losses that they are taking, and this year it's on a rise. I know inside folks that work at Lowe's, they are on the level of $251,000 in lost merchandise to date. You cannot absorb that kind of loss without shutting the doors and leaving Anchorage, okay? They just can't. Or they're gonna flip it around and have to put money into armed security, which now you're gonna get into confrontations. The SB 91 does not allow for any consequences for the actions. They remove those by knocking down misdemeanor or felonies to misdemeanors. When they raise that theft level to $1,000, the criminals got the message. They're taking advantage of it. It is definitely affecting our city. It's going to have an economic effect in the term of lost jobs and thus more crime. So I applaud your effort in repealing it, sir.
Thank you. If you have any questions, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank
you.
you.
Be safe out there.
Your coffee.
Thankfully, it doesn't have any ammo in it. So.
Move the meeting, sir.
Excuse me. Thank you. My name is Michael Schaefer, SHAFFER. Some of you know me. I'm currently employed as a prosecutor with the Municipality of Anchorage. That I am going to make clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of that office or the Department of Law. I'm here just on my
As
own.
a private individual?
Private individual, although I will speak some to my experiences in that capacity. And for those of you who don't know, I started with the prosecutor's office about 12 years ago. I was there pretty much steadily for 3 years when I went to work for the Justice Center. Mr. Cross and I worked together in that office. I worked with your son when he was in that office for a brief time before he went to Palmer. I will say that I have seen the negative impacts of SB 91 in a number of ways, in many ways that people here have testified about in terms of the rising level of, if not criminality, someone said emboldened criminality. I think that is pretty accurate. I don't know if people are aware of the specifics of SB 91, but I can tell you that the reduction in penalties on misdemeanor level, so Class A misdemeanors that were 365 days a year, went down to 30 days as a first-time offense. So that's a 92% roughly reduction that the legislature enacted. For what they call Class B misdemeanors, which were 180 days, dropping down to 10 days, which is about a 95% reduction. So essentially, it was as though the criminal class in Alaska had their own lobby with the legislature for the non-reduction in crime. And what happened? It has, from a prosecution level, it has dramatically impaired the tools that we have to effectively hold people to account. And that's what we do. The police arrest, they respond to reports of crime, they do their best, they investigate, they arrest offenders, they may or may not be able to take them to jail under the bail schedule and otherwise, but they do their best. But then the cases come to us at the city or to the DA's office to prosecute people and basically, as I said, to hold them accountable. One way we have what I call relatively blunt tools for doing that, but one is certainly jail fine. And I will say that we live in a free society, one of the freest society on earth. And what comes with that is people have lots more ability to make choices, good and bad. When people make choices to the extent that they offend against society, the liberty that they have is deprivation of that as a consequence of their own behavior. I am all in favor of effective rehabilitation, but as someone pointed out, it's a function of how people respond to it, and it's difficult for the criminal justice system to enforce rehabilitation. And that is that if you give people programs to do, SB 91 has limited the ability to have people do those programs, and also even if they have programs to do and they don't do them, chasing them takes time. The societal costs here, there are costs of incarcerating people, but the societal costs that you're hearing are real. They are the cost to businesses that are going to increase prices or close their doors, that don't feel safe. They're the cost of people on the street who have to worry about drunk, reckless driving or other type behavior, and people in their homes who have to deal with people who not just assault, but who damage property, who while drunk, neglect children. A lot of alcohol-driven crime in our society. So people, one thing before I cut off.
Well, I'd like to ask you a question if I can.
Yes.
You can.
Your time's up, by the way, Mike.
It is, but Mike, good to see you again. So as specifically as you can for both the audience and the assembly, what tools were taken away from the municipal prosecutor's office that you have found effective in either prevention or getting people into treatment?
And actually that dovetails what I was saying. So for example, we used to be able to include that people would have to report to the Anchorage Alcohol Safety Action Program for assessment and refer for treatment. People may not be aware of the legislation that said we're really worried about rehabilitation and want this to be a focus. Stripped away the ability of judges to put people into court-monitored treatment with the exception of DUI offenses. So all the domestic violence crimes that I prosecute, and they are many, where people are intoxicated or impaired, I don't have the ability anymore to include it, make ASAP a part of their conduct. The reduction of penalties has an impact, and I'll just give an example. I had a case where a lady was, her ex-boyfriend was mad at her. He had new photos of her. He sent them to every member of her family electronically. Maximum penalty for that under the new crime provision on the code, 10 days. With good time credit, that's 6 days. So the reduction in criminal penalties is a problem. The reduction in probation periods is a huge problem. People don't know this, but the maximum for, violent offenses, or some violent offenses, assaults, is still 3 years. Domestic violence is 3 years. Everything else is 1 year, with the exception if you have a second DUI, it's 2 years. When people have less probation time and they continue to offend, and this is going to really play itself out as the years go forward, they have less incentive, and Mr. Koff has been in that position, to accept plea offers, to take accountability for their crimes, because there's not the penal incentive of days hanging over their heads in terms of probation, for us to do it. That is part of our stock and trade that was effectively taken away or dramatically reduced. So there are, and that is of a few examples I give. I just did want to say, and answer your question on, people I work with, prosecutors in the office, in the municipality, we work with everything we have left to effectively prosecute people. It is dispiriting to go to court sometimes and to have people, I had a lady who a few weeks ago she was in custody. She was on her 5th theft. She had no jail time to do on any of the prior ones, and her 5th theft this year. So her 5th theft this year, she's been convicted 4 times with no jail consequence. She was in on another one. The maximum under the legislation was 5 days, with 5 days suspended, effectively no jail time. She looked like she had found a pony, like a 5-year-old had found a pony out, in her backyard. I was in court yesterday with a guy who was on a trespass. He had 30 convictions total. He had 10 convictions this year alone on various cases. 10 prior convictions. We're barely into the 4th quarter this year. He had a trespass, the maximum, because it was a commercial institution, was 10 days. Same thing. He's like, that seems just fine to me. So the whole preventing recidivism thing, not working so great.
Anything else?
But these are the limits of the tools we have, and it's the limits and I've seen people laugh at judges when the judge tells them what the maximums are. Yes, we are limited, the court is limited. One last way we're limited. When violation conditions are released, when a judge orders someone to not do something while they have a criminal case pending, and that person goes out and violates the judge's orders, the legislature made that a ticket. Yeah. It is a ticket. The court can't issue a warrant for the person for violating the condition, because it is not a crime. It is a ticket. So it's not just us. The judges have had their authority dramatically stripped away.
And those areas that you mentioned are the ones that I spotlighted: the probation time, the use of ASAP, and then 54 itself had the VCR. we've had a lot of great testimony about just scrap the whole thing. I started with here's 4 or 5 areas you need to fix. It's a legitimate question whether you go all the way back or you spotlight the things you know are getting in the way. I hear that today. Thank you for your work with the prosecutors and your testimony.
And I do want to make clear, I'm not advocating one way or the other about Worksession or not, because that's your decision. I will point out in SB 9054, the second offense for a class A misdemeanor, they are capping, instead of 360 days, they are capping at 60 days, which also dramatically impairs our ability to effectively prosecute.
But Mike, even in 54, if you're picked up on a DUI and you're given an ankle bracelet, you cut the ankle bracelet off. All they do is take it and their ankle bracelet off. That's the problem with 54.
There's so many problems. The coming bail changes to speak to that. At the beginning of the year, Department of Corrections effectively will be scoring people for and bail. Department of Corrections, their main goal is to incarcerate people, but also to have them out. That's your problem. But also, what people don't know is we often have third-party custodian cases where people are really bad offenders and they can't be trusted to be out without the court designated reliable someone to watch them, so not contact with them. Starting on, I'm pretty sure it's this coming January, in Anchorage, that you won't be able to do that because the SB 91 says if there's anywhere where DOC has monitoring, the court can't impose a third-party custodian requirement. So that is going to be much more dangerous for the community as a whole and people who are victims of really serious crimes, including people who commit homicide, get third-party custodian requirements.
Mr. Peterson has a question. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I was just wondering, how long of a backlog, how much of a backlog of cases do you have? We've heard that there's fewer prosecutors now than there were a few years ago, and so the cases get backed up.
It's hard to say that because the legislature decriminalized certain offenses that we prosecute regularly. So, for example, most driving license suspended are no longer criminal offenses, and so those are not on our caseload for the most part, unless people are on DUI revocation. There are some other classes that were taken away. So we're still getting a volume of cases in. The backlog, I think that there's sort of more dragging of cases, and people feel freer to not show up for court and not drag cases, and there are aspects of that. So there are, but I can say I probably have, twice as many, or almost twice, well, at least half again the number of cases in my office right now that I had around this time last year. But I can't tell you that that's a function of SB 91 or the fact that there's been a clog in the process, and part of the clog is the court closes half a day on Friday, and that doesn't impair the judicial system's ability to have cases moved. So that I hope that answers your question. I wouldn't say that SB 91 is a clogger, but we do have many cases that come in that people are given effectively tickets for arrest and release, and they do take a fair amount of time to prosecute, and we're delayed prosecuting them because they come to us later in the process.
Any other questions from some members? Mike, have you noticed a cutback in the state prosecution? I'm told that the amount of prosecutors state has been reduced dramatically because of lack of funding.
We have seen that. I think that they have. I think I've heard that they have at least maybe around 4 or 5 prosecutors from about 3 or 4 years ago over at the DA's office and other personnel. We see that there are tough screening decisions that are made with respect to cases because of those resources. And I can tell you that we sometimes get cases referred because we seem to be better able to absorb some cases than they are. But when people talk about us in misdemeanor jurisdiction, I prosecute strangulation cases. I prosecute cases where people have been, driving drunk, on the wrong side of the Glen Highway. The misdemeanors, kind of go a long way. But we have seen cutbacks of some of the training, and I think that they have had an impact in that office and Anchorage overall. And to be fair to the DA's office, the murder rate has gone up significantly. The vehicle theft rate has gone up significantly. These are all cases when police are able to identify and arrest, go to their office, they're complicated to prosecute. So they are strained as well, and they do have a reduction of force. We have had some, I don't know if reduction, but we had a prosecution position that we hadn't filled for a while, well, maybe I'm going to fill it, but we thought the strain as well.
We just translate for Mike there. When we get a horrible misdemeanor that should be a felony, we send it up to them. So we handle most of the domestic violence at municipal prosecutors level. If it's a strangulation you mentioned or others that are classified as a felony, we used to be, when there was a fully staffed prosecutor, able to send that up and it's prosecuted as a felony. We're seeing a bunch more of those just sent back. So he's forced to do it as a misdemeanor, which is capped at a year. Things, multiple DUIs, where after doing it multiple times it's a felony, or you would send it up and it would get prosecuted as a felony. Now we have to do them as a misdemeanor, and that means it can only go up to a year.
Well, and collectively for our offices, we want to be able to most effectively collectively prosecute offenders. If there's a strain on their staffing where cases have come to us and it doesn't look like it'd be efficient or effective to transfer it, and also if they look at it and say we might not be able to, carry it through as a felony, and then our being able to prosecute effectively is as good as any. It's no disrespect to the DA's office. They are good prosecutors over there, and they are serious about crime. And you just saw in the paper that Mr. Klugman got 2 felony convictions for the murder of that 15-year-old, and that was a 25-day trial. That was hard work. They work hard over there, and we work hard in our office.
Mike, since I've got you here, and we know your work, how's this budget we're putting together this next year impacting your office? Are they projected cuts in your office?
I'm going to defer that to Ms. Nino because I'm not privy to those conversations for the most part, and also as I said, I speak mostly for myself and my experience.
I know. I'll get her eventually.
I think that is a question that's better addressed to her directly.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, sir. I'm sorry. Ken?
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if you've heard, but the Thursday night County Council meeting, one of the state legislators mentioned that there is going to be an increase of both enforcement and prosecutors, number of people hired coming up. Have you heard any rumors to that effect?
Well, that would be a state issue. It would be a function of the State Department of Law. That wouldn't. I don't think any of that flows to our jurisdiction. We are separate. We are funded by the municipality. We are. We're not. I don't think we have any state funds.
I think we need to hear from the municipality as well. I know the police department is getting up to speed in terms of folks that have been in training are going to be on the street, and that's going to help with our enforcement part of it. But the prosecutor's office in the city, how are you doing with personnel?
I would say that having more prosecution resources to match the increase and the increase in police on the street would be helpful, just like there is for other staff related to the police. I mean, you need more records clerks and you need things like that. I'll give you an example. We have operated for years and still operate without any paralegals. The state has some, we do not. So the attorneys effectively are mostly our own paralegals in many ways. But we just push through all of that. So more resources, honestly, would be totally appreciated because we feel like we are also on the police are on the very front lines of law enforcement, and we are one step behind them in the law enforcement process. So whatever resources we are able to bring to bear for the good of the community, and I can tell you that that's what I care about. I care about the safety and well-being of the community. It distresses me to hear how many people are afraid of things. I almost feel like I'm not doing my job as well as I could after that, but I do feel strongly about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Any other questions? Thank you. Welcome to the meeting, sir. We promise we won't keep you as long as we did him.
I'd like to thank the Assembly for allowing me to speak and thank everyone who shared today. This has been a learning experience for me. For the record, my name is Jason Pirtle. Last name is spelled Pirtle. I'm a father, brother, son, a student at UAA. I work as a carpenter here in Anchorage. And although I have been a victim of crime countless times, beginning in my early childhood and extending into my 30s,
I've also victimized countless people. I'm a 3-time convicted felon. I've served approximately 12 years in the Alaska Department of Corrections. During my last incarceration, I had a realization about the type of selfish person that I had become, how my actions were hurting other people, my children specifically. Over the course of that 3 years, I took advantage of various programs that were available in the prison, formed positive relationships with some of the staff members and numerous volunteers that came in from the community. Many of those volunteers are still in my life today and providing guidance and support and mentoring to me. When I was released in 2012, I took advantage of some of the services that are available for inmates who are being released, including clothing, bus passes, help with making a resume, job seeking. Individuals at the Alaska Native Justice Center helped me to apply for a Pell Grant, which eventually led to me becoming a student at UAA, which I'm grateful for. Over the first 6 months of my release, I was living in a homeless shelter. For the first month, I was living in a homeless shelter. For the first 6 months, I was riding a bike around town, going to work. I began to progress, got a stable job, I started school, building and still building relationships with my kids. The difference in the process of my release as compared to my early releases, especially the 2 convictions that I had for felonies, which were extended periods of incarceration, is dramatic. The availability of centers where I could go to and count on people being there who understood my situation, some of the barriers that I was facing, some of the challenges that I was facing, in particular to inmates who were being released in the community, was extraordinarily helpful to me. I would say that it's a large factor in the success that I had. Of course, my acceptance of personal responsibility is a larger factor. I've heard some members of the community speak on that it's a personal choice for people to make that change, and that's true. But I had that willingness numerous times, and fortunately, there were people there because of SB 91 to sort of encourage me in the right direction when I was willing to make that choice. As far as SB 91 is concerned, as you know, there are components that have not been implemented yet. As the previous gentleman said, resources about more officers on the street. I believe there's 60 Department of Corrections officers in the academy right now that are supposed to be released into the community.
So you need to sum up your testimony. Your time's expired.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Sir?
Yeah, could you, when you're done, get to help describe the point at which you had that moment of clarity for us?
Sure. I've heard some emotion from the people. I've heard concern about crime. That's helpful. I would encourage people to read SB 91. It's 123 pages long. But if you're really interested in what SB 91, where it came from, the history, the Pew Report is a good resource, as well as the implementations in the state of Texas, which is a model that we drafted. Also, Sweden has a prison population of about 5,000, which is comparable with the state of Alaska, and Sweden's prison system looks more like college campuses. They're places of learning, and Sweden is closing prisons down because they no longer need them, and that's because of the criminal justice reform that they put in place years ago. Yet there's no question that there's the changes in the theft statutes are problematic and need to be adjusted. So I think that's a good idea. But if we really want crime to be reduced, we need to reinforce SB 91 with further criminal justice reform, as was stated earlier by Charity Walters, the president of Fallen Up Ministries, and not let emotion guide that process. Nelson Mandela, who himself spent 27 years in prison, said that a nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest ones, and that's the truth. In answer to your question, sir, my daughter was 9 years old when I was incarcerated in 2012. I called her on the telephone.
It was about a month after I was released to tell her that I was back in prison. And she asked me, how long? How long can you be there? And I could hear the sound of her heart breaking. And that was a sound that I'd never heard before. And it inspired something in me to look beyond myself, to see how my actions were hurting other people. And that's something that many of the inmates that are incarcerated now, people that have recently been released, they haven't had that moment of clarity. But they can. And they need people around them to encourage them when they have that moment of clarity to continue walking on a path towards success. I had that because of SB 91. I hope that SB 91 is not repealed so that other people can have that opportunity as well.
Hello,
Thank you.
Mr. Croft? Sorry. Is that on my? Go ahead.
But Sweden and Texas did their reforms in terms of treatment and options up front. They didn't do a get out of jail free card and then hope for the savings later. They worked to make those savings, and then 5 or 10 years later you do see it. Didn't SB 91 get it fundamentally backwards by putting instead of having treatment produce vacant beds later, they just created vacant beds in our prisons without the treatment resources.
The treatment resources most certainly need to be bolstered. But I believe that SB 91 is a part of that. It calls for that. And there are parts of SB 91, like I said, and as I'm sure you know, that have not been implemented yet. Resources that have not been accessed yet. The 50% tax on marijuana that's supposed to go toward rehabilitation has barely had a chance to have an impact.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for your testimony. We appreciate it. Any bills
Chair.
who should testify, please come forward.
Mr. Chair, just
Sir.
really quickly, I pulled up the quick budget numbers on just the municipal attorney's office, and it looks like they did get a $50,000 reduction. I don't know how that's going to affect the prosecutor.
Actually, they only get a $50,000 reduction if we agree to it.
That's true. Thank you.
Sorry. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Richard Evans. I'm born here in Alaska, born in Anchorage. I've lived here most of my life. Some of you guys know me here. Thanks for taking the opportunity to speak on a Saturday. It's very unusual. Mr. Bosky, I disagree with you on a lot of things, but I appreciate this one. You got it right. There's a bit of time. I'm going to have to make this bullet points. I've watched crime go up. I've watched crime go down. I've watched it for 8 years in Anchorage. Last 2 years, crime has been going up. It shows no sign of stopping. With SB 91's implementation, mind you, this crime rate did not start with SB 91. SB 91 has exacerbated it badly. I have personal experience. I've watched the crime rate go right through the roof because of this. Criminals have more rights than the citizenry do. They're more educated on this building than the citizenry are. They know exactly what they're able to do underneath of it. I have watched thousands upon thousands of dollars of tools, merchandise, and everything leave my place of business. There's nothing I can do about it. APD is not going to do anything about it. Nobody can touch these people, and they know it. With respect to the gentleman back here for the $250,000 loss in one building, I'm sorry, sir, that's chump change. I'm aware of one building here that's lost $900,000 plus last year. One store. One. This is increasing exponentially. It is fueling the drug trade that is sweeping through Alaska, through Anchorage. It is a low-level crime that is building, and it's building a base, and it's getting even higher and higher and higher. I have spoken with Anchorage Police Department personnel off the record. They are playing catch and release in the parking lot of my building. They will not stop people. They will not take them in. They give them a ticket for mommy and tell them to show up at the principal's office. I don't think that's going to work. I don't know about you, Lieutenant. I don't think so. But they're telling me that SB 91 has tied their hands. They can't do anything. They have no authority. They can't fix anything. I don't even bother calling them anymore. I reached the point, what's the point? It takes 2 or 3 hours for them to respond to anything. Why do I even bother? I also don't see any APD representatives here. There's usually one, but I didn't even see them. I guess I didn't think this meeting was important enough. Now I realize you guys are not the state legislature, but you can put a voice forward on this. SB 91 has some good points. The one for the sex workers, I am fully in agreement with. It needs to be implemented. However, SB 91 took away the stick, and then they took away the carrot. There is no penalties, and there is no funding to help anybody that actually wants it. I have learned through bitter and personal experience that if you don't ask for help, you're not going to take it. So we have to start with triage, get these people off the streets, and then get them into treatment. They're not going to volunteer on their own. I've watched this happen in my own face, in my own home. And lastly, with SB 91, with the cops not even showing up, so many different things in this bill are wrong. I hate to say it, ladies and gentlemen, but the vigilanteism in town is going to increase. And I'm not going to call Anchorage Police Department if someone breaks into my house. I will not call them to stop the crime. I will not call them to deal with the people coming into my house. I will be calling them to pick up a corpse.
Okay. Not a question. Just a clarification.
Ladies and gentlemen, come on back, sir.
It's not a question. I just wanted to point out that APD had a representative here that just left. Nora Morse was here. So just so everybody's clear, the APD did have representation here, just until 5 minutes ago.
I would like to see a uniformed officer.
I appreciate that. I just want the record to reflect APD had their person here. Thank you.
It would have been nicer to see him, and you can actually see and know who it is.
Thanks for being here, sir. We appreciate it.
Real
Welcome,
quick,
sir.
my name's Floyd Hall. Agree with some of it I don't. The response times of APD on some of the steps that we've been at is amazing. I know their hands are tied. Had some issues. Sure you've heard about it. Being charged with a crime for actually following a stolen vehicle and being shot at. Not trying to be a vigilante, trying to help APD do their job. Have no issues with APD, but when their hands are tied and you're handing criminals a get out of free jail card, it just don't help the system.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir.
Hello, my name is Eric J. Hecker, and I'm the founder and leader of the Anchorage Citizens Militia. A lot of the folks that are in here come to our websites. A lot of folks that are in this township that are well aware of the fact that you guys do have a hands tied behind your back, and that nobody is coming to help them. Our recruitment's going through the roof. People are scared. They're looking for training. They're reaching out. People are in here talking about there being armed. People are talking about vigilantism. Nobody wants that. But nobody wants to be scared in this town anymore. We're aligning people with resources to not be scared anymore. I recommend that as an option for you folks. If you're trying to find solutions, make people less scared. Fund it. If people want training, if people want to be armed, if they want to be good citizens, if they want to uphold their obligation to their neighbors, empower them to do so. Stop making everybody scared of each other. Do something about it. The fact that I'm here right now, I don't vote. I have no faith in you. What I'm letting you know is that everybody's losing faith in you. I'm not against you. I'm on the same team as you. I want everybody to feel safe. You're apparently failing. The people that I represent asked me to come here. Now I know why. Do a better job. I challenge you. Step up. Do it. Good luck.
Mr. James, did you just form your militia since July 2016?
Yes, I have.
So it's brand new?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hello, sir.
My name is Owen Kuiper. I'm a 68-year-old Native American. I'm a patrolling and probationer, and I've been a criminal all my life up until just a few years ago. I am sober and pretty much law-abiding except for several traffic tickets that I received in the last year. What I have to say is that, and I'm not proud of this, but I want to, I believe that I'm kind of an expert on doing time. I've been in every prison, every major prison on the West Coast since I was a teenager. In around 1995, the state of Alaska made a major mistake they sent all of the state prisoners to an immigration customs enforcement prison in the state of Arizona for 15 years. And I was warehoused there for 10 years. I was warehoused. It doesn't matter about treatment, what treatment they're provided. There was no security there. And when when there's no security in a prison, in a major prison, then the prisoners take over and they're the security. And so you taught a lot of young Alaskans of all races how to be criminals. And since that time, the prison system in the state of Alaska has just been infected with this gang mentality, and it's not stopped. It's growing and growing. It's a major infection in the prison system. And that's where you get all your violence and criminal behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify? Move the meeting, sir.
My name is Paul Mills. My wife and I have lived in Anchorage for 42 years. We've raised a family. We have a lot of family members now, including grandchildren. For the first time, we're talking about moving. That's how upset we are with the amount of crime that has taken place in the city of Anchorage. That's how much the complexion of Anchorage has changed, here over the past couple of decades. It's really disappointing to see. Once upon a time, I had thoughts in my head that were like, if we move, where are we going to go? I couldn't think of a place that was better. Now I feel quite differently about it. And SB 91 is not good. SB 91 is not advocating the citizens and law-abiding people in our city or in our state. What it's advocating is, a slap on the wrist of the criminals. If somebody commits a crime, they should be responsible. Yes. If somebody commits a crime, they should pay a consequence. And that doesn't appear to be happening here lately. And it's having a real effect on us, and you got to make a change. You got to make a change, or you're not going to have any constituents who are going to be willing to elect you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify? Please come forward.
Assembly doesn't still stand if we can't use other people's minutes.
Anyone at all?
How about state legislators?
Yeah.
That's up to them. They're individuals. If we have any here that want to testify, they're more than welcome to. Come on forward.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. Could you pull the microphone down towards you so we can hear you? Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm here today because I also am a victim of crime. Back in February, a vehicle of mine was burned in our yard, and I still haven't figured out who it was or why. Complete loss. It's unfortunate. My husband had put a lot of time and blood, sweat, and tears into rebuilding this vehicle, and just like that, it was taken from us. And recently, in September, I had a vehicle stolen. I had just gotten off of work and was picking my children up from daycare, and had my 2 kids with me, and somebody had gotten in my truck and took it. Put us in quite a bind, being a mother of 2. And of course it put a lot of stress on our family also. We were able to recover the vehicle, which is wonderful, but there's still that feeling that somebody was just able to walk up and take it. and nothing was done to that person. It's just not a very good feeling, you know, that people can just come and take things and whether they're caught or not, you know, it just, something needs to be done. There's too much crime in this town. There's 2 vehicles of mine in the last 7 months. And it's just, it's getting to be too much.
Ma'am, could we get your name for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Katie Van.
We got that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Hello. My name is Paul, and I'm going to leave it at that. The last speaker, the other Paul, kind of copied what he was saying, and somebody's probably already said this because I can't read. I apologize for that, but I've been here almost 40 years, raised 4 grown children and have children, all law-abiding citizens, done really well. They don't go out and steal things. That's why I raised my kids. Tonight we're talking a lot about crime and criminals. What about us? What about me? What about you folks that care? The morality of the city is changing. God is the foundation and the devil is real. And there's some really bad things going on. I hear people speak. I'm a victim. I'm not going to get into what happened to me, but I'm different. I've changed. I have a lot of empathy. I'm a very compassionate person. And like the last gentleman said, that he might be thinking about leaving the state. I don't feel the same anymore. So you need to think about the people that live here, the really good people live here that follow God, or whether they do or they don't, they're still good people. You got to stand up for us, for me, for my children. The other 4, they're still here. Please, because if you don't, I've changed. The last gentleman's changed. You better protect the people that are good, because if we all start fearing and worrying about the guy and staring him down and wanting to go punch somebody in the face, that's not what we want in the city. So I just ask that you think about the good people, just not the criminals, because I've had enough of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all? Ma'am?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to, come on forward if you want to talk. We publicly noticed this meeting till 1 o'clock, but we put out a public notice of the meeting, and I know 3 legislators are here, and people want to hear from them, and I won't speak for all of them, but I know a couple of them came specifically for the reason to listen and to take notes. And so Representative Tar is over here, Sheree Smollett, she's the House Minority Leader, and Representative Kathy Tilton are over there. I suspect they'll be here for a while, so if for some reason you want to talk to them after the meeting, we're not going to put them on the spot and put them in front of the microphone, but I just want you to know that those 3 legislators are here and are listening.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Robert Moore, been a lifelong resident of Anchorage. I want to talk about the good things about Senate Bill 91. Yeah, there's some good things about it. The system is broken. It's the call. The system is broken. We need deterrence. We need consequences. People are committing crimes. They're having their hands slapped. They're fined a few dollars, and they're turned out. So we need some consequences for them. We need rehabilitation. We can't expect somebody, gentleman earlier in here today that was spent most of his adult life in jail in Philadelphia. We can't expect somebody that's been in jail for most of their adult life to be turned out into society without the tools to become a participating member of society. So, Senate Bill is our call. Senate Bill 91 is our call. It's broken, we need to fix it. Another thing, I just had to run my dog around earlier. One of the things I got to think about as I was driving. Okay, so we have petty criminals, assaulting, stealing cars, not major crimes, but just enough to be under the Class C felony. And we're charging, what, a few $100, $500, $1,000? Where do you think they're gonna get that money? They're not working. Many of them are drug addicts. They steal to fund their drug habit. So if we're charging them money, they've got to steal from us to pay for their fine? How does that work? And it's costing us we're talking pennies on the dollar for stolen goods. Maybe guns, maybe 10 cents on the dollar. So it's costing us, citizens, a lot more by just finding them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Welcome to the meeting.
I'm Susan Fischetti from Eagle River. Just getting here now, so I haven't heard what else has been talked about. But the crime in Eagle River is out of control. We have a rental property that's been broken into 2 times. And on Thursday night, I was at the South Fork Community Council, and the word came out about the chop shop up on Highland Road, and the thieves were let go on bail. And so I just feel like SB 91 is not working. We need to start over again, and that we have legalized theft and criminal activity by that bill. And I just, I feel like this is not the Alaska that I knew when I've been here for 35 years, and I don't feel safe. I don't like the way, the news is these days, and I feel like a message needs to be sent that we're not going to let this happen in our town. We need to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wish to testify, please come forward. Anyone at all?
Mr. Trainee.
Ma'am?
You had mentioned earlier that if we got through everybody and somebody wanted to add, they could. Are the
could.
cutoffs still open?
We've got half an hour yet, Amy, there.
All right, before we get to that, sir, I apologize to the public and everyone else. I have another duty that begins at 1, and so I have to leave. And I regret that I'll miss that. I would like to thank everybody here for one thing, whatever side you fall on, the civility in this room. About 99% of it has been amazing, and it gives me hope for the future of our city, that we can come together and have different opinions, and we can have that conversation without shouting, without becoming trouble to each other or pointing at each other. So I thank the body, and I also apologize that I have to.
Take care of yourself.
I would just like to say that I am not against Senate Bill 91. I do believe that the problem, though, is that it is the policing is the problem. Just a couple weeks ago, my sister was threatened 2 times by her ex-boyfriend to be shot. She called APD. APD said, meet me at this location. She waited 3 hours. APD never showed up. She went to court the next day, got a restraining order. APD never served that man a restraining order for a week. The federal marshals have, because this man was on federal probation on ankle monitor, and why they couldn't serve him his paperwork. Right after that, she had attempted robbery at her job, called APD. APD never showed up. My daughter had her identity stolen. APD does nothing. The problem here is APD is not doing their job. That is the problem, and that is a serious issue. When you call APD and they take 7, 8, 9, 10 hours, or don't even my daughter's apartment was, next door neighbor was apartment was shot. APD didn't show up till the next day. This is the issue that we're having, the municipality making too, is the police are not, it seems like they're just picking and choosing. It's easier to nab a car thief than it is easier to go after somebody with a gun. So, again, there needs to be more training, and there needs to be more with the APD.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Therese Galvin. I know I've already spoke, but I wanted to mention something in regards to what I had said earlier. So on April 27th, when I was in the hit and run, the gentleman backed up into me and proceeded to hit another car and take off. I chased him. While my daughter videotaped him while I called APD. He pulled over. He had marijuana in his car. He obviously had some criminals because they fled. He also was carrying a gun. I called APD 3 times. It took APD almost 3 hours to get to the scene. 3 hours it took. I was alone in my car with my daughter. I had no way to protect myself, and he had a gun. He came to my car, he threatened me. He told me to get off the phone, that he just needed, that we could just settle with insurance. Nothing happened. The cop gave him a 2-point ticket. He said, "Ma'am, I know that he was smoking pot, or I smelled pot in the car." He searched the vehicle, but I didn't find anything. It had already been at that point almost 4 hours. There was no way for him to drug test him. No way to drug test him. In fact, while I was waiting for the cops to show up, I called my husband and I had him sit and wait with me, because I was so afraid. So afraid, and he got a 2-point ticket. And the slap, I don't even know. I just know that, again, I mentioned, I've been here for 41 years, and I'm moving to Texas. My family were leaving. I don't want to live here anymore because I am so afraid. And I can't bring a gun to my kids' school. And let me tell you, my children go to attend Northern Lights ABC, and there was a lockdown on Friday. Some guy came to the school. I don't even feel like bringing my kids to school anymore, and I certainly don't have the patience to homeschool them. So I just really would like you guys to, again, as Sean mentioned, talk with the APD. I understand that they're overwhelmed with all of the crime, but I had to wait 7 hours for APD to come to my house when my home was vandalized. My husband was out of town. My dogs were crated, which they aren't now. I had a gun, but it did me no good. I have an alarm system. I had $40,000 of items stolen from my home. If I move to Texas, do you think I'm going to get homeowners insurance? I don't think so. Took away my safety, and I live in a good neighborhood in South Anchorage. I just really urge you to think about the families, because we want to stay here. I want to live here, but I shouldn't have to be worried about driving down to my local Fred Meyer's and getting in a hit and run and having to chase the guy so he can actually pay for the damage that was done to my car. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I read my last speech, but I wanted to look you guys in the face and tell you a little bit about, I wanted to share a little bit about my own personal experience. I have been in recovery since the day of my arrest, April 2nd, 2005. And I didn't know how to live because I grew up in the system, foster care, group homes, juvenile hall, and then also in adult prison. So what helped me was programs that were in the prison system when I was incarcerated. Those programs are not in the jails. There's no treatment in there right now. And I know because I work with currently incarcerated inmates. I have guys calling me from Spring Creek, which is the most maximum security prison in the north of the United States. And they are being rejected treatment. There's only one program in Wildwood, and the guys are being told, well, I don't know what to tell you, your custody level's too high. But those individuals that have the power to override their custody levels to get them the help that they want. And I deal mostly with institutionalized individuals because I've been institutionalized myself. And I know what works and I know what doesn't. Today, for the first time in my life, I'm a homeowner. I own my own land in Palmer. I bought my own vehicle. I don't commit crimes. I have a security system though. Believe me, I watch it from my phone, make sure nobody's coming up on my property because I am also fearful of what's going to happen when I'm not there. My son's car, I picked it up last week. That had been sitting in police evidence. I'm terrified to even leave it out in the driveway. It's the last place my son took his last breath. I have to put it in the garage because I don't want somebody stealing it. And the car is worth maybe $1,000, but it's priceless to me. What needs to happen is we definitely need to be providing these resources with individuals that are currently incarcerated and start in pretrial, there needs to be some form of peer-to-peer support groups. If the state is giving DOC money, what are they doing with it? Why aren't they rehabilitating people right now? Offender can sit in pretrial for 2-3 years before they actually go to court, and guess what? There's so much dope at Anchorage Jail and Maxi pretrial. Those inmates are getting high all the time, and I know because I'm down there visiting. And I see it. I can see it in their face because I lived experience. I know when somebody's loaded. They're not doing anything with their time. They should be being rehabilitated. There should be pretrial treatment, and they should be offered transitional services when they get out. My organization, all volunteer. I've applied for grants. I can't even get any grant money to help people. We also do ambulatory detox. I did that all volunteer too. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome back, sir.
Hi, my name is Butch Moore. I thought maybe a little history of my experience with SB 91 would be important for you guys to hear. When Pew Charitable Trust first came to Anchorage, they met with Cindy and I first, before they went to the round table in Fairbanks. And they explained that over 50% of our prison population is there because of drug and alcohol abuse or mental health issues, all of which Josh Almeida had, who murdered John Bree. He was actually evaluated and committed 2 years earlier, but there was no place for him to go, so they ran out. So what Pew explained to us is much like, let's say we had a fleet of vehicles and they said, we're going to buy synthetic oil, and it costs money. Nobody wants to pay it. But they explained, we'll take 50% of the prison population out and put them in treatment, in drug and alcohol rehab, mental health treatment, and that costs a lot less. So we're actually going to save all of this money for half of the population, and it's going to cost us a lot less for the treatment. And what ended up happening with SB 91, and keep in mind from the prison population report, the prison population was growing, and the sponsor of SB 91 replied several times, what happens if we don't pass SB 91, Senator Cockrell? He said, well, we're going to spend $550 million building the prison. Well, from 2014 to 2015, the prison population in Alaska grew 6 people. So there's, I think, a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on there, but the directive was to give the treatment. There were 21 different items that Pew recommended. And when SB 91 passed, the headline was, state saves $354 million. Follow the money. All the intentions of SB 91 were to put money into treatment. And the Assemblyman Croft has it exactly right. We let everybody out, and we've heard over and over. But you have to give time. You have to give us time to let it work because there's 3 phases. Well, this is like the synthetic oil. We drain the oil out of the vehicle, but we're going to buy the synthetic oil. We'll do that later. We're running on no oil right now, and so that's kind of the history that I was aware of. But the Criminal Justice Commission, State of Alaska, came out with a report to the legislature this January, and it actually says, in 2015, the legislature further directed the commission to forward only recommendations that would do one of 3 things: avert all future prison growth, 2, avert all future prison growth and reduce the population by 15%, or number 3, stop all prison growth and reduce the population 25%. What about the other 20 items that Pew said to bring forward? What about the treatment? And I would recommend, if we're going to fix something, put the treatment in, which is what you guys have brought forward in the one bill. I mean, these guys need the treatment in prison. If they're sitting there with no treatment, they get back out to the offender. So thank you so much once again for doing this today.
Eric?
thank you for all you're doing, and the analogy is a great one. Yeah, we didn't put the oil in. SB 91 had this idea of, and more than the idea, they've been funding, I guess, organizing, and are ready to bring out probation officers 60 new probation officers that will do this kind of active, and apparently they're getting hired and the standards are hired. What is your personal opinion between fix a bunch of this stuff, put treatment first, or get rid of all that? I mean, I think 91 totally got the cart before the horse, but it does have some elements of it, not just the sex worker elements, but the probation elements and some of the others. What should we do? Scrap and start over, or I think everyone here agrees Band-Aid ain't going to work, but substantive change these 5 things and keep some of the other probation officer and other things, or just get rid of it?
Cindy read the list to you. We're number 1 in all the worst categories in the nation. So, is it appropriate to lessen the penalties, especially in the midst of an opioid crisis, and let people have 20 hits of heroin and just let them walk? I guess my answer to the question is, and I'm a real estate developer, have you ever had a car or a house and it couldn't be sold and nobody would buy it? And the reason was because it cost so much to fix. You could start over with a brand new car. It's that old 70s Chevelle, right? By the time we put so much work into that old 70s Chevelle, or that Northern Lights Inn that they just tore down, it would cost so much to fix it. When you talk about fixing, I mean, the law is this big. SB 91's 125 pages, and we got to fix it 16 pages. I mean, it's a mess. And so there are some good things. I went to Juneau, I got murder 1 and murder 2 increased 50%. I got the red bars on the license for probation and parole. That wasn't there before. I know the sex trafficking, there's some very good things. The rehab, the reinvestment. The problem is they're not doing the reinvestment. I talked with somebody this week in the legislature, and I said, why aren't we doing the reinvestment? They said, we don't have the money. It's like, well, you saved the $354 million, and if you told us you're going to have to reinvest a third, you need to put $100 million back in. So we don't have it. Well, maybe the answer is to your question, somebody brought up. Maybe if 91 is repealed and the state doesn't save that $354 million, maybe putting just $100 million back in would sound pretty good.
Thank you.
Ms. Nabowski has a question for you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Can you repeat that data point you gave me on prison growth? You actually made me take a double take when you said it.
Yes, this is the Alaska Department of Corrections 2015 offender profile. It's available online. It's page 8. And if you look at the total number of offenders in prison in Alaska, in 2014, the number was 5,013, and in 2015, it went up to 5,019. And this is
That's the explosive growth that's going to cost us $350 million for a new prison, right?
Well, if you're trying to sell SB 91, it would sure seem awful scary to have to spend $550 million for a new prison for those 6 guys.
Thank you for that.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm Tara Burns, and again, I'm speaking to you about the subsections that were added to Statute 11.66.120 in SB 91 that are proposed to be taken out in Senate Bill 54. And those sections provided instructions to prosecutors to not charge people with sex trafficking, but to charge them with prostitution instead when their conduct amounts to prostitution. If a sex worker finds herself in a location with a victim of genuine trafficking, the sex worker should be encouraged to report the crime rather than being hunted down as a sex trafficker herself, as currently happens, or as would happen, and did happen previous to SB 91 when people shared locations. Sex workers and clients of sex workers are first responders in sex trafficking situations. It is your responsibility to public safety to ensure that these people do not face felonies for reporting the situations to law enforcement. 11.66.130 and 135 are so broad that they define many sex trafficking victims as sex traffickers. I can tell you of at least one case where myself and another advocate were first responders in a sex trafficking, case of very violent, scary sex trafficking. And because of the subsections that were added in Senate Bill 91, that victim was able to report without any fear that she would be charged or her fellow victims would be charged with sex trafficking of each other, as has happened in the past in Alaska. You have not heard of any cases where a perpetrator was harming someone and could not be charged with sex trafficking because of these subsections. Removing the subsections is not based on any evaluation of how they have impacted public safety or cases that weren't charged or reported because of it. This is a strong departure from the evidence-based nature of Senate Bill 91 that should not be permitted to move forward. Although the trafficking statute was not in existence when I was a juvenile trafficking victim here in Alaska, if it had been, these subsections would have allowed the sex workers, who were my co-workers, to report my abuse so that I would not have continued to be trafficked for 3 years. Removing these sections puts sex workers and sex trafficking victims at risk. Please help protect the sections of Senate Bill 91 that deal with safety for sex trafficking victims and sex workers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak as you heard. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from some of your members? Thank you for testifying, Matt. Welcome back.
Thank you. I just want to say this really quick. I have to answer your question that you just asked this gentleman about. You know what? This whole bill needs to be dumped and start over. And it gets back to, it needs to be back to basics where it's the drug and alcohol that needs to be taken care of. My daughter was 14 years old, got into drugs and alcohol because of her being hurt by somebody. And I had to literally send her to the state of Utah because there was no facility here in Alaska that could help my daughter. No locked facility. No parent should have to send their kid away from their home state because there's no resources to help them. When my daughter got out a year later, there were no resources to help her back into society. And it was a struggle to help her to keep her sobriety. You know, unfortunately, 20, 30 years, we're all going to be gone. But look at the example we are setting for our children. The example that's being set for my grandchildren, that this kind of stuff is acceptable. And it's like, okay, we can be number one of all these things. I don't want my grandkids to think that. I want other kids to think that it's okay that, we have alcoholics and we have drug abuse. Everybody does. You know what? We don't have to. We can finally stand up and say, we've had enough. And you know what? You need to start at the basics. And if there's no money, you know what? Let some of the legislators, let some of them contribute some of their money. Let some of the public contribute some of their time and be volunteers. But if we don't do something about the basic problem, we're never going to solve anything.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Eric.
You might not be around 20, 30 years. I hope I am. Should I try and salvage the murder provisions that Mr. Moore put in and the probation officers that are coming online? Or just forget, just not do it?
The bill probably has a few things that are worth salvaging, but there's no reason that you can't take those things that are worth salvaging and put them into a new bill that you can come up with that is going to deal with some of the other basic issues that need to be dealt with in this state. Personally, you kill somebody, an eye for an eye. Yeah. That's the way it should be. And how dare people think that they can come to your house and steal from you and not have any consequences? I, like many people, it's like, you come in my house, I'll be calling the coroner. I'm not calling the police to come help me. I'm gonna protect my family. And me trying to protect my family against some guy who's whacked out on meth, that's crazy. I mean, that's almost foolish for me to do that, but it's my natural instinct. I'm gonna protect myself, you know, so.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Any
I don't
questions
know how
from
to
assembly
answer
members?
that.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Welcome back.
Nice to see you all again. Sorry, I'm gonna try and be a little, as my boyfriend says, we'll try and use nice language, less bad crap, passionate. So, obviously I'm gonna try and use my words here. As I was trying to say earlier, what I really want to understand
Take the
is that you
microphone
guys,
over so we got you, or you or the microphone.
Bring the microphone towards you, man.
I was like, sir, I'm pretty loud.
I know, but we're getting
don't really
older.
want me that loud, do you?
We're getting
All right,
older,
well, let's
so
do
it
this.
helps.
All right, honey, you asked for it. So, come from an old redneck girl. So I'd like to ask all of you, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, and like I said, I'm trying to use my notes now. I'd like for any of you to answer the question of what the most important thing in your life is. What is the most important commodity or asset that you own? Ms. Dombrowski?
Well, there's a lot that's important to me. I'd say God, family, and country.
Okay.
I don't own any of them, but I
You do.
As a public servant, the number one thing is public safety.
Okay, so, and I appreciate that. But let's say as a personal citizen, what do you think is the most important thing to you?
Safety.
Okay. Sir? Mr. Peterson? For you, sir?
The most important thing is time. We have a limited amount of it.
Okay. Croft?
Yeah, I thought about it since you were here. I think time, there's all kinds of good answers to that, but I'll go with that, sure.
Perfect. Dunbar?
I think it's respect for others.
Okay.
Family.
Sir? Ma'am? Either of you?
She's not a player in this.
Okay. Ma'am? Sir, well, there's a name on there, so I just assumed.
Thank you. Family is most important to me.
Sir?
Family's it?
Sir?
Relationships.
Sir? I'm sorry? Time. Okay, so here's what I actually asked my mama the other day. My mother is a very well-educated woman. She's a medical doctor. She has been for almost 40 years now. And I asked her the other day what she thought the most important commodity in life was. What was the most important and valuable asset that she could own? She said family. I said, Mom, I agree with you, but guess what it comes down to? The underlining of that is time. Because time is the only thing that you cannot buy more of, you cannot make more of. And so what has happened right now in our state is that these people are wasting our valuable time. I'm spending 4 hours on a Saturday when I could have been sleeping in or, moving stuff out of boxes or talking to my boyfriend who's at Red Dog, going out to a friend's barbecue in Wasilla. There's a lot of things that I could have been doing with my time. However, now my time is being spent here, trying to work on this state. So right now what it's come down to is an egregious, just like they're doing our legislatures and our governor, they are wasting money as much as they are wasting our time. And this is what I'm upset about. So like I said, you'll have to forgive me that I get so upset and I get so passionate. However, just stop wasting my time. I am allowed, I should be allowed, to be able to sleep at night. The other night, my poor boyfriend, who's not used to this because he's from Delta Junction, I'm from, like I said, the ghetto in Arizona, a car backfired. And I rolled out of bed and hit the ground, thinking that it was actually a gunshot. He's like, where are you going? And I was like, tactical shotgun, ready. And he's like, calm down, you all right? And I was like, oh no, it's okay. It's just a shotgun. Or, sorry, it's just a backfire. And being an aircraft mechanic and helicopter pilot, which is why maybe I'm so passionate and I work so hard on things, because I'm used to practicing dying. And I know that you guys have no ability to actually control what's going to happen here soon, but our legislatures, they really need to understand. Yesterday, I didn't even get a chance to prepare a speech for this, because I've been fielding Facebook messages since the last assembly meeting and I was on the news. This is not necessarily your guys' job to deal with, although I really appreciate your guys trying to do it. And I wasn't trying to yell at you. but I'd like to get a good night's sleep. My eyes, it looks like my boyfriend punched me in the face. He's not, obviously. He's the nicest man ever. But my eyes are so black because I'm so tired all the time. I'm lucky if I get an hour and 20 minutes a night. This has to change. And I'm glad that you guys are standing up for us and that you're actually trying to tell our representatives, quote unquote, as I say, and our governor, I'm sorry, but I call him asshat, Governor Walker. I really don't care how people feel. Hey, I'm not here to make friends. I really don't give a,
Whatever.
cow patty. What I'm here to say though is, like I said, it's really important that you guys are actually trying to do this and that we're trying to work on this because this has become such a stressful state. I used to live here and feel happy. It's the first time I've ever felt safe moving here. And now, I roll out of bed thinking that it's a gunshot and it's a backfire from a car. I do have a lot of ideas about how to save money for the state. So if anybody would like to hear them, I'm more than happy to tell you. I'm actually quite brilliant. I'm the stupid one in the family, like I said. I can fly a helicopter, and I'm an aircraft mechanic. Licensed to the FAA. My mother's a medical doctor, my brother's a lawyer. He also has a microbiology degree and top secret security clearance and all this other stuff. So,
Feel free to put them in a great big email, and it's easy to get us.
sir, I'm not going to waste my time emailing you guys if you're not going to read.
Oh, we read it.
I hope that you do, and I'll try. And thank you guys.
Thanks for
your time. I
coming
really
back to
appreciate
talk to
it,
us
sir.
again. It's good to see you.
Sir,
We've got
that's all
nine.
mine. I apologize.
We've got 9 minutes left.
Let's get open up again. Hey, I'm going to make this real quick. Another thing about SB 91 that's really corrosive is the drug dealers, kind of like lawyers. They try to figure out ways where they can make more money with this thing. And my understanding is the reason why these jails are full of drugs is because of one of the provisions that if you violate one of your agreements of release, that you serve the 1 or 2, 3 days in jail. These people get arrested on purpose, so they go in there full of drugs in their cavities. I don't want to get real explicit, but then occasionally they get caught. But that's what these jails are getting all these drugs. And the people are using SB 91 as a way to fill the jails full of drugs. And that's what we're trying to help, supposedly, with this bill. So I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know if anybody was aware of it, but I knew quite a few people there work in the system. And they told me about that, and that's kind of concerning. So when they're using a law to help them make money, it's kind of ridiculous. And that's another good reason to get rid of it.
Thank you, sir. We've got about 7 minutes left, so if you want to testify, please come forward.
My name is Robin Mitchell. Since this morning, when I told you about my disabled veteran husband that's had thousands of dollars stolen, been assaulted, and APD has done nothing, I got a text message from a woman while I was here. Describe my husband's pickup truck, describe my husband right down to his Fresnel wraparound glasses, because he's legally blind. 3 low vision specialists tested him with cerebellum damage due to 16 head injuries as a career ranger in Green Beret. There's nothing wrong with his eyes. She described him, described his car. She waited for APD to show up. My husband cut her off. She followed him. He pulled over and got out and got into a fight with this woman, a scuffle with this woman. 9/17, the state of Alaska gave him back his driver's license. He's had 2 reckless driving charges in the last year. This is the municipality of Anchorage, is the last one. Tuesday, October 26th, he did not show up for the last one. He got a default judgment. When he kills somebody from the state of Ohio, because nobody wants to stop this man, because he also has agnosia, he does not realize his brain injury. He will drive until somebody stops him. And now he's got a full-size Dodge truck with a huge battering ram on the front of it. So when he kills somebody from that state, I'm going to make sure the entire country knows that nobody did anything to protect Anchorage and Alaska from a disabled veteran who does not know to stop himself. His name is John R. Mitchell. And you can go to Vote Judge Morse Out on Facebook. I started it 2 weeks ago. I got 34,000 people come to my Facebook page in 2 weeks. The judge that let the teenage girl out that killed the gentleman on the bicycle gave her 3 months in jail, Judge Morse. Vote Judge Morse out. We can see the thing up there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
My name is Linda Chase, and Mr. Chairman and Assembly members. We've heard all these horror stories today, and we know there's many more that aren't here. We'll read about them in the paper tomorrow, hear about them this next week, of what's happening to Anchorage. My great fear is this. We have a legislator, Herta Gardner, who is running around having these sessions where she's talking about how great SB 91 is. And she came to the Rogers Park Community Council armed with attorneys from the ACLU and all of this kind of thing. But anyway, I fear that our legislature is not going to pay any attention to what's been said here today. Because Anchorage is not saying enough. We're the biggest city. Everybody needs Anchorage and comes through here. We should be demanding. And demanding is a very soft word. Changes. And I don't know why our legislators from Anchorage don't have the guts to stand up and be counted for the biggest city in this state and say enough. We want to take back our community.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? We got about 2 minutes left.
Sorry, I'll make this really quick. I just want to double it. Been living here for 34 years in Alaska, all around, and you know, I never used to think of anywhere else I could live. I love Alaska, but for the first time, like some other gentleman had said, I'm truly thinking of leaving. I'm moving to Oregon because this place is so violent. I can't live here anymore, and especially with a legislator that doesn't listen to any of his constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Craney.
Ma'am.
Mr. Craney. Hi.
Sorry, Mr. Mowski.
Thank you.
I'm used to the screen that tells me when you're...
I know this is the end of our meeting and we are
It is.
publicly noticed till 1. But Mr. Craney, if you could just recap for the public the process in which we will be taking up the resolutions in the public discussion at this
We'll be
time.
taking up the resolutions on Tuesday. There'll be no public testimony on the resolutions. We've had enough testimony. We take an action. It's important we get down to Juneau and they understand what the sentiment is of the Anchorage Assembly. Whether they listen to it or not is up to the legislator. But we're going to send them what we think. Ed, you'll be the last person testifying.
Thank you. My name's Ed Larrabee. The second, and this is what I think, policemen, you need to get out of your cars and come into the public. Don't just drive by. Hey, if they do drive by, get their number and call up the cop shop and see what, and call the mayor's office. But get things going. Because right now, I've seen them like yesterday. They drive right by and they're looking all around. They just drive, everything looks normal. If they got out and walked out of their cars, they would see the crime like we do. Because we can't hide in our cars. They have to come out and deal with the public like we do. So, that's another way of the police should be more in contact mentally and physically with the public. Because right now, they're using their cop cars as a border, as a divider. They have to do their jobs. And no more excuses. They have to do their jobs. My name's Ed Larry. That's what I think. Good night.
This hearing is done with. Thanks for being here. Send this down to Jim if you would.